they can't miss it. Like when you have someone sends you an email and they bold one of the sentences to make sure you don't skip it. The part that's bolded says, Apple's proposal introduces a backdoor that threatens to undermine fundamental privacy protections for all users of Apple products. Apple's proposed technology works by continuously monitoring photos saved or shared on the user's iPhone, iPad, or Mac. One system detects if a certain number of objectionable photos is detected in iCloud storage and alerts the authorities. Another notifies a child's parents if iMessage is used to send or receive photos that a machine learning algorithm considers to contain nudity. Because both checks are performed on the user's device, they have the potential to bypass any end-to-end encryption that would otherwise safeguard the user's privacy. Immediately after Apple's announcements, experts around the world sounded the alarm on how Apple's proposed measures could turn every iPhone into a device that is continuously scanning all photos and messages that pass through it in order to report any objectionable content to law enforcement, setting a precedent where our personal devices become a radical new tool for invasive surveillance, with little oversight to prevent eventual abuse and unreasonable expectation of the scope of surveillance. There it is. But yeah, they're getting a lot of pushback, to put it mildly. And I will tweet this out as well. And thank you to Renjant who sent this in. And there's a lot of smart professionals in the space who knows how this stuff works, like the EFF and the cybersecurity folks as well, are like, this is very uncharacteristic. This is in essence and non-congruent with Apple's stated key framing of their leading value proposition, which is privacy, 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 all caps, bold, italicized. We are the privacy company. That's our main game. And now you've essentially have privacy asterisk, and that asterisk will start out rather small, but could eventually overtake it could grow out. You know how you have asterisk and then double asterisk and triple asterisk. This thing's going to grow to 20 asterisks very quickly.
Hey Tyler, how did they decide even taking it at face value?
Say again?
In terms of looking for child porn, how do they decide what image is child porn? Side an image on your phone is child porn. Exactly. Does it scan the photo, or is there a database of child porn?
It's exactly. It's a database of known images is what they're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the clear part, is that they're not going through your device to look for your images to determine if it's pornography or not. They're after the distribution of known images. And I have a feeling that, they're watermarking images to basically follow who these people are as they download them from these honeypot sites.
I see.
So, okay, that's the big story. It will continue, and Apple knows, they heard the backlash on the first day, and they powered through and said, yeah, we heard all the backlash. We're gonna continue to educate everybody, and full steam ahead. So I don't know that Snowden or this letter that just got sent out, that I just tweeted out that you can read, I don't know that it's going to make any difference. Matter of fact, I don't think it is. So to be continued. We'll, as I've said, this is one of those dramas that will go on and on for days, and we'll be watching it as it does. So the next biggest story at this very moment, another ongoing drama, which is the crazy drama of Binance, which is a crypto exchange where people, buy and sell all kinds of coins and such. And Binance is a weird player in the whole crypto space, in that they've not really been playing friendly with governments at all. They've made no effort to really, they've kind of just not been responding to governments and not engaging and just operating in a country, and that countries don't like that. Countries want you to be controlled if you're operating within their terrain. And if you're doing business there, they want you to register and follow all applicable laws and regulations and whatever. And Binance isn't. They're just like, hey, if you're a user, here's our site. If you find it, do what you want to do, whatever, whatever your country's problem is, that's your country's problem. And the country's like, no, we're going to tell our citizens not to use you. And then if we have to, we'll ban you. And, And every week for the past, several months, there's been the list of countries that are out against Binance is, quite long at this point. And now Binance US CEO Brian Brooks resigns just over 3 months after taking up the role, citing differences over strategic direction. Oh, and I wonder what those differences might be. I think I happen to know. He cites strategic differences in leaving crypto exchange. The former bank regulator joined trading platform in May. And let's have a quick little looky-loo at this article from Bloomberg. He cites strategic differences. The former bank regulator joined trading platform in May. And Brooks announced his resignation Friday in a tweet saying he wished his colleagues success despite differences over strategic direction. And that's the whole article. And if he's a former bank regulator, my guess is he's all about compliance and working with the authorities. And as we discussed earlier in the first headline, tech companies and governments, which is you just comply in those geographies. You don't really have much of a choice, or they're going to make life very, very difficult for you. And this guy being a former, bank regulator, Brian Brooks, yeah, he's going to comply. That's sort of his game. That's his whole shtick. And the CEO, who goes by the nickname CZ, notoriously isn't complying, has shown no interest in complying. In fact, he's showing a lot of, the tendency is he doesn't want to comply, has no interest in complying. And so I think that is the nature of their discrepancy, as he refers to it, difference of strategic direction. I'll even go so far as to say, and I have kind of said, and thank God Amaze just came in, I've even gone so far to say previously, and I think this helps confirm my suspicions that CZ aspires to go fully decentralized. That's what it seems to be. He's not interested in complying or being regulated. He wants to be wild and off the grid. And this, the CEO of the U.S., Brian Brooks, a former comptroller of the currency during the Trump administration, he's all about compliance. Those two things are at their cores entirely diametrically opposed. So, Emma, any thoughts on this? The Binance U.S. Chief Executive Officer, CEO, Brian Brooks, stepping down just months into his tenure amid a slew of compliance setbacks and regulatory, where he's attributing it all to strategic differences.
I think there's a couple of things there, Tyler, really quick. One is the fact that, remember a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned the lady that's disappeared. That was the previous CEO.
Yeah.
The woman who disappeared in April and no one's seen her Twitter. She's been like MIA.
Mm-hmm.
And only a reporter's been interacting with her over some sort of back channels.
Okay.
But this gentleman, I mean, yeah, he wants to go decentralized. But remember what I also said about a month ago, that watch the rabbit hole, because this is the beginning of the unraveling of Binance. And this is it. I mean, this is very similar to the way the BitMEX went. So, I mean, he can do what he wants to do, but unfortunately, I think maybe it might have been Donna or Ken that might have said something, and please forgive me if I don't have the memory of it, that the long hand of the U.S. will kind of still get it. And at this point right now, there's a hell of a lot of Americans that just sit on Binance.com with VPNs. And he even said it. He's like, look, I will do my best to keep them out, but I can't I can't police them. And unfortunately now there's also a lot of countries that are kicking Binance out. And I think Hong Kong was the most recent one. Hong Kong also just kicked him out, kicked part of their work out, the derivatives piece. So I just think this is going to be an interesting couple of weeks. I think you'll see a lot more coming down. And now with this infrastructure bill and just the whole drama of what's been happening, apologize for that. With all that's been happening with the infrastructure bill and what I'd said yesterday, there was a gentleman who's a lawyer in one of the Bitcoin rooms that said something, and I'm going to paraphrase it. It's what I'd said before. If the crypto community remains divisive between Bitcoin and Ethereum, United States will will be out of the crypto. Yeah, forget anyone wanting to be in crypto in the US. They'll just have to leave the country or go somewhere else because it will just take it down. And everyone's talking about it and they're really feverishly passionate about it. But, I don't know how that's going to look going forward. But Binance itself, to circle it back, they've been doing this for a while. So I think now is about the time that they're going to get their just rewards. And this is also the reason why Sam detached himself from Binance, because Sam, what is it? Sam Bankman-Fried, is that his name? He was together with CZ, and he actually stopped interacting with him and diplomatically walked away from it.
Cool. So yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. But I wonder, and I'm wondering if the recent infrastructure bill and the provisions about crypto played into this guy's decision in some sense.
It could have.
Yeah.
Could have.
Yeah,
Because
could have.
didn't he come from the SEC or something?
Yeah, he was a comptroller during Trump. Yeah.
Well, maybe there was some conflict of interest with the strategy, and maybe he would put himself in a precarious position, and under his contract, he couldn't. So maybe he just decided to leave amicably. But also, CZ Binance also made a statement right after that saying, "Oh, we've left on good terms, blah blah blah. I wish him the best on his endeavors." But that is definitely the stamp of like they didn't leave on good terms. That's just the PR statement.
Yeah. Yep. So next biggest article at this very moment is the FCC releases its first ever mobile broadband coverage map, which compares the LTE and voice coverage areas of the 4 largest carriers in the U.S. And let's have a looky-loo at this. I will tweet it out to the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. And
noticeably doesn't include 5G, which is, more important for me at least.
Yeah, it's it covers broadband. The federal
LTE.
Yeah, the Federal Communications Commission, the FCC, which they oversee anything to do with communications like internet and phone and all of that, and TV, has released its first ever mobile broadband coverage map. The tool allows you to compare the LTE and voice coverage areas around the country, the country's 4 largest carriers, which are AT&T, T-Mobile, Sprint / whoever.
T-Mobile is Sprint, but
T-Mobile and Sprint partner.
And Dish is the new one.
U.S. Cellular.
But the big question is how do you get 5G in rural areas and high-speed 5G in city and building? And this map does nothing to really.
Verizon's the other. Evan, by the way, your mic sounds like you have a bath towel over your mic today.
Okay.
So the it's just a cute little map helpful for Americans to see who's covering where. And Verizon is moving big into 5G, as we learned just in the past few days. And so the next big article at this moment is the SEC, not the FCC. The SEC is the Securities Exchange Commission. They oversee everything to do with stocks, basically. And the SEC charges blockchain, even more than stock, anything to do with finance, really. The SEC charges blockchain credit partners for alleged illegal sales of $30 million in unregistered securities. First, SEC charges related to decentralized finance industry. The SEC says that the company falsely raised $30 million, and the SEC issued its first charges. Here, let's read this together, and I will tweet it out right now. This is from The Verge, coming your way on the Tech News Twitter account at TNATW. It says the SEC issued its first charges against a decentralized finance industry, meaning a DeFi company, a startup doing decentralized finance, accusing 2 people of illegally selling over $30 million of securities in unregistered offerings. And that's a big no-no. Everything's got to be registered. The SEC's Friday order found that 2 executives from the Blockchain Credit Partners company used the Ethereum blockchain to sell cryptocurrencies to investors while misleading them about the company's profitability. Specifically, investors purchased cryptocurrencies using digital assets like Ether. The company then promised to pay investors over 6% in interest, and that the funds would go towards physical investments like car loans to create additional income. The SEC determined that these real-world investments wouldn't generate the income advertised. Here's the quote: "Full and honest disclosure remains the cornerstone of our securities laws, no matter what the technologies are used to offer and sell those securities. This allows investors to make informed decisions and prevent issuers from misleading the public about business operations." So, yeah, big old fine. Yeah.
Make a point on securities regulation.
Go ahead.
Okay. Everything doesn't necessarily need to be registered because there's provisions to sell unregistered securities. I mean, even municipal bonds generally are not registered, but the thing is, nothing is exempt from the anti-fraud provision. So whether they're registered or they're not registered, you can't commit fraud, you can't make false statements. And if they charge them with fraud, it's because there's something fraudulent about what they did beyond whether they had securities that were registered or not, Because 144A is unregistered. There's plenty of things you can do that are not registered that are completely legitimate. What's not legitimate is lying.
Okay, next up, Senators Warren and Portman propose an amendment to infrastructure bill that only excludes crypto miners from broker definition. White House shows support. And this is the biggest story in crypto land, and one of the biggest stories to ever hit crypto land, honestly. And it will... do we happen to know what the timeline is for the conclusion of this drama? And what how the U.S. will settle this. The bill excludes only proof of work mining or the selling of hardware or software that gives individuals control over private keys to access digital assets. Is there any knowledge of when this will get settled one way or the other?
I think they are finalizing today, no? Set today.
Perhaps it seems like it's going to happen very soon. Anyways,
I think you will know by Monday.
Yeah. Okay. So stay tuned on that. The next one is about the massive Epic Google lawsuit, where Epic is basically suing Apple and Google for their 30% tax in their app stores, and saying that it's not fair because Epic is one of the biggest game makers, the maker of Fortnite, which is like the biggest game of 2020 and 2019, and they don't want to pay this 30% tax. They don't understand why they have to, because they're not paying it on other platforms like the console games that people participate in Fortnite, and these are their fans who want to play their games on these other platforms, namely the Apple phone and the Google phone. And why are these devices charging a 30% tax? And it's causing Apple and Google a whole lot of headaches, because Shopify jumps into that bar fight and says, yeah, and smashes a bottle over their head and goes like, yeah, here's one from us too. Like, why are you charging Spotify fans, this 30% tax? And it's a really interesting thing, because the platforms are like, we charge everybody equal 30% across the board. The small developers who make brand new games you never heard of actually don't mind this, because you're getting a lot of visibility to your app that you normally wouldn't get just by being in these app stores, especially when these app stores were brand new. When the iPhone just came out and there were only 1,000 apps in the app store, everybody saw your app, and Dropbox really benefited from that. Evernote, more than anybody, benefited from that, especially on the iPad when that came out. And now that there's millions of apps in these app stores, the ability for people to discover you goes down and down and down. Nonetheless, if you're an unknown app developer, is better than nothing. These huge apps like Fortnite, my God, everybody knows about Fortnite. Nobody's just learning about Fortnite from the App Store. You know about it already. So why should Fortnite have to pay 30%? No one's discovering it. They don't see that it's a real benefit. They just want people to be able to download the game that they want to download. Anyway, so the latest headline from The Verge says that in court filings, Epic Games, the maker of Fortnite, says Google called plans to distribute Fortnite via side loading, meaning not in the App Store, separate from the App Store, a threatening contagion, meaning others would start doing it as well, and contemplated buying some or all of Epic. Oh, wow. Whoa.
That'll get rid of the problem.
That's one way to fix that issue.
Yeah.
That's, that's clever and quite sinister. So basically, Google and Apple both are very concerned about this issue of side loading. Means people being able to download an app with outside of the App Store, because if you download it from the App Store, the App Store owner, Google and Apple, get their 30% fees. If you download it outside of the App Store, then they don't get their fees. And so Apple said, here, let me read the headline again now that you know what this means. And by the way, Google apparently said this idea of that's called side loading when you don't download directly through the App Store. So side loading is a threatening contagion, meaning other people will learn about it in a kind of viral kind of way. And so we don't want it to be known that it's possible to do it. And it is technically possible to do it, but we don't want people to know that. We leave it open to be technically possible, because if we don't, then we can be called as a monopoly. But now if we leave this side channel open of this side loading, we can tell the court and the judge, no, judge, they don't have to use our store. They can side load it. Of course, what's important is now the judge knows that, the jury knows that, but the 3 billion users don't. That's what's important. And so they can just be cheeky and say to the judge, hey, judge, no, look right here. I'm downloading their game right now outside of the App Store. It's called side loading. Anyone conceivably could do it right now. If we told anybody, God knows we never would, because that would be we'd lose billions of dollars if anybody figured out how to do this. But yet technically it's possible. So now, again, let me read the headlines now knowing what you know. Epic says Google called plans to distribute Fortnite via sideloading a threatening contagion, and it would jeopardize the whole App Store ecosystem, and contemplated buying some or all of Epic to prevent that knowledge from even getting out. So one way to solve this prickly scenario with Epic Games with Fortnite is, well, what if we just bought Epic Games to make this lawsuit go away? To not threaten the our whole little racket of our app stores and the secret side door to be exposed if we just bought Epic Games and Fortnite. End of story. Case closed. Everybody's happy. Life goes on as usual. So if that was being discussed internally at Google, that's Epic's lawyers are going to love that. They're going to use that as ammunition in that lawsuit and say, hey, judge, guess we just found that they say that, of course, they say that they can sideload. They just showed you how they could sideload Fortnite. Well, guess what? They are so worried about sideloading becoming mainstream that they're willing to potentially buy Epic, which is worth, I don't know, tens of billions of dollars, that they're willing to buy the company just to prevent that whole scenario from unfolding. And that should tell you what you need to know about what they really, what they're really up to. Interesting, really interesting evolution in that drama of that court case. I want to crack that article open right now just to see what the actual language was around this. So bear with me. That's a really interesting revelation. Google considered buying Epic Games as the company sparred over Epic's Fortnite Android app. According to newly unsealed court filings last night, Google lifted some of its redactions in Epic's antitrust complaint against Google, which Epic amended and refiled last month. The complaint still omits many details about Google's dealings with specific companies, but the new details reflect internal Google communications about competition on the Android platform. Epic claims Google was threatened by its plans to sidestep Google's official Play Store commission by distributing Fortnite through other channels, meaning sideloading. And in an unredacted segment, it quotes an internal Google document calling Epic's plans a contagion threatening Google. Here's Epic's description of the situation. Google has gone so far as to share its monopoly profits with business partners to secure their agreement to fence out competition, has developed a series of internal projects to address the contagion it perceived from efforts by Epic and others to offer consumers and developers competitive alternatives, meaning sideloading, and has even contemplated buying some or all of Epic to squelch that threat. Wow. In the internal messages discussing the possibility remain secret, and the complaint doesn't indicate that Google ever reached out to Epic with these plans, like with an offer to buy them. It also doesn't give a time frame for the discussion, although it presumably happened after Epic started its plans to launch Fortnite on Android in 2018. Yes, obviously. In a tweet after the article's publication, Epic CEO Tim Sweeney said the plan, quote unquote, was unbeknownst to us at the time. And then Tim Sweeney, the CEO of Epic, took to Twitter yesterday to say this was unbeknownst to us at the time, and because of the court's protective order, we're just finding out now about Google's consideration of buying Epic to shut down our effort to compete with Google Play, meaning sideloading. Epic has also alleged that Google offered it a quote-unquote special deal to launch Fortnite on the Play Store. In another unsealed section, the complaint describes a Google Play manager reaching out to Epic about its plans to sideload Fortnite and apparently admitting that sideloading is a, frankly, abysmal experience in the process. And here they are quoting as saying in their court filings, one manager from Apple contacted Epic's vice president and co-founder to gauge Epic's interest in a special deal and, among other things, discussed the experience of getting Fortnite on Android via direct downloading, which is sideloading. The Apple manager's call notes state, the call with Apple's manager notes state that she viewed direct downloading Fortnite as quote unquote frankly abysmal and quote unquote an awful experience, and that Epic should quote unquote worry that most will not go through the 15 plus steps. Wild. That could come back to really hurt them. And so that's an ongoing drama, and we'll be watching it with popcorn for the next headline on that one. The next biggest headline at this very moment is from The Verge. Valve Steam Deck hands-on. Who cares? Next one is Microsoft. One of the VPs at Microsoft teases the Spotify integration with Windows 11 and then deletes the tweet because he leaked something unknowingly or maybe knowingly out of excitement that he shouldn't have. And it's just that they have Spotify kind of more natively integrated with Windows 11. The next headline is that experts say that a startup called Rappi, R-A-P-P-I, experts say Rappi's service has worsened even as the Colombian on-demand delivery company continues to grow, opening the door to competitors. And it's from this food delivery company from Colombia that's growing so fast that they're getting a bit sloppy, and this opens the door for competitors, long story short. And this is true because during a lockdown, during a pandemic, food delivery companies are growing faster than any companies in the history of the planet. Similar to, which was the gorillas in Europe, or the delivery companies in GoPuff in America or in India. This is happening everywhere. When you've got people locked in their homes and you're doing more orders per day than is humanly possible, and it's wild. The world's never seen this kind of growth of a company, these delivery companies during a pandemic, during lockdowns. So, and what we're seeing it, I'm seeing it firsthand here in Thailand. Everyone's just ordering everything all the time. My God, what is the Grab and Food Panda and the competitors here in Thailand? The streets are essentially nothing but food delivery moped riders with big, temperature controlled boxes on their backs and delivering everything everywhere all the time. It's massive. It's unprecedented. And we saw headlines last week about gorillas based out of Berlin, where they're growing so fast that, they've got disgruntled former employees, making comments to journalists that this company is growing so fast, it doesn't know what it's doing, it's out of control, it's the next WeWork. Okay, yeah, well, they're also adding 10,000 employees in a year, 1 year, from zero, starting at zero, up to a 20 billion valuation in a single effing year. The first year. Imagine creating a $20 billion company in 12 months. That's how fast they're growing. And then these journalists writing articles about, this could be the next WeWork. Oh my dear God, you're a journalist writing at, one of the most dying, blogs on the internet, and you're questioning if this company Gorillas is going to be around in 12 months when it's very likely your blog won't be around in 12 months. Give me a break. Anyway, yeah. What the world's best problem to have? You're growing so fast, it's a problem. Yeah. Sign me up for that problem. Sign me up for the problem that I'm growing so fast that it's a problem. Sign me up for that problem. Can you please imagine a better problem to have? No, there is no better problem to have as a company. The growth is so ridiculous that it's hard to keep up with. That your staff, your team members aren't sleeping, they're not getting days off, they're working overtime, etc. You can't hire fast enough, and this is best case scenario as a company. You can't wish for this scenario. It's wild. And for journalists to come out, with their steak knives and try and, write this up as the next WeWork, it's just fundamentally misunderstanding how these things work. So anyway, next biggest article at this moment from Bloomberg says, a look at Singapore's efforts to become a leading hub for esports in Southeast Asia, a region expected to see the fastest esports revenue growth globally. And Southeast Asia to see fastest esports revenue. Singapore's infrastructure and ecosystem put it in the lead. Yep, it's true stories, and it's a unique opportunity for somebody who really wants to be the global leader for esports. Makes sense. It used to be, Korea, China, and now that tensions are rising with China, it kind of gives Singapore an opportunity. So anyway, next big story is from Nikkei Asia out of Japan, my favorite Asian publication, and they're writing about Vietnam, which has a relatively low number of bank branches per capita, has become a battleground for e-wallets as market leader Momo looks to maintain its lead. E-wallet app Momo looks to maintain its lead against deep pocket rivals. And yep, that's where Southeast Asia's at the moment. Is the fintechs are laying down the fintech plumbing and piping, which will enable e-commerce. And then watch for the inevitable. I mean, e-commerce is already happening in Southeast Asia, but once all of this fintech features and functions and products and services really get robust, it's just going to explode. For one reason, they can do deliveries more efficiently, more cheaply, lower labor cost on motorbikes rather than actual cars like they're doing in the US for whatever reason. And yeah, it's working. In fact, Thailand's first tech unicorn is a flash delivery company called Flash, which is enabling e-commerce, not coincidentally. So the next biggest headline at this moment is a federal judge tosses out a $308 million patent infringement verdict against Apple, ruling that personalized media communications DRM patent is unenforceable. I've never heard of that company, PMC, or their DRM patent, but personalized media's patent is unenforceable. Judge rules PMC had strategy to delay applications to get more money later, but it's been thrown out. The other bigger headlines at this moment are A developer of enterprise software raises money. Big whoop. China-based Inceptio, which is developing autonomous trucks, raises $270 million. Led by JD Logistics and Meituan. That's who you want partnering with you if you're doing autonomous stuff in China. JD is the biggest logistics company in China, enabling e-commerce. Meituan is the biggest delivery company of food. They started out with food, but they're doing a delivery of all e-commerce and stuff. So JD and Meituan investing in this autonomous truck company, Inceptio, for $270 million. Bada boom, huge. It's happening. And then the next biggest article is vaccine skeptics who have been demonetized on YouTube are now raising money on crowdfunding platforms, including the Christian-oriented Give, Send, Go and GoFundMe for the time being, until GoFundMe realizes what they're doing, and then they'll shut them down too. So, next biggest headline is a European marketplace for refurbished electronics, that's used stuff, called Refurbed, raises $54 million. That's kind of interesting. I think the next step is to, rather than sell used stuff, just rent out your used stuff. And after 4 times renting it out, you'll get more than you would have for selling it. And now that delivery systems and the e-commerce piece is all in place in the US, let's start doing this is an old ass idea. I had this idea in 1999.
Tyler, if you want to jump further, I'm down. I mean, I've always, I work as a machinist, and we have a lot of expensive tools that I really wish I could just loan out or rent out occasionally and kind of return some of my revenue, my money back. I have a tool that might cost $1,000 I use once.
Now that identity verification's coming into play, that brings a whole lot more trust into that equation, the rental thing, because the big vulnerability in the rental thing is, they rent your air compressor, which is like $500, and then they weren't verified,
it comes back trash,
and they're gone. Now that everybody's actually authenticated properly with their state IDs and their facial recognition, there's nowhere for them to run. So
I literally was thinking, Tyler, what you have to do is when you sign up, you basically throw your equipment into a pool.
Yeah.
And you have a certain pool value out of the pool.
Well, this is the other thing. Now that it used to be entirely quite cumbersome, especially pre-smartphone, to list all of your inventory. I know this intimately because when I left America, I'm from Southern California, and I up and moved, when was that? 2012. And sold everything I owned, literally everything. And it took months to do it. And that was a whole lot of eBay back then in 2012, like hundreds of items. That was a whole lot of auctions going on simultaneously during that summer of 2012. And then because it was all desktop driven, it was pre-mobile generally. And now that you have these elegant, if you could, it would be a mobile first thing, just like everything is these days. And more importantly, you now have image recognition
AI,
being built in. Apple's has image recognition, product recognition built in. So now I don't have to tell the app, as the user who has you in your case that you just described, of having a whole bunch of tools that are valuable and small and can be delivered across town in 10, 15, 20 minutes. You could just use your camera to point at the thing and it would know what it is. And you could add that item to your little shop of stuff to rent out, your little rental boutique, just by click, 100 items.
Who's your buddy with the storage company that does the real-time storage?
Ari,
and pull it out for you.
Ari Mir.
Oh, dude, that's the perfect company because they already have a catalog of all of the stuff.
I've talked with him about this. Like, for whatever reason,
that's the hot ticket.
I know. I've actually had that conversation with him, and Ari and I have been friends since 2007 when he was doing an ad network. And anyway, Ari's super smart guy. He did Clutter. Clutter is you're at home, you have a whole bunch of shit in your house, you don't have enough space for it, so you call Clutter. It's an app. They come to your house, they take whatever it is you want to get out of your house, they store it in a warehouse, and they have it all digitally documented. So if you want anything back, like some plates or dishes because you're going to have a dinner party at your house, or your skis or your winter jacket, they'll bring it. Boom, easy peasy. Like they'll deliver it to you. And then you have this digital inventory. It's almost like putting your physical shit in the cloud, like cloud storage for your physical shit. That's Clutter. By the way, he confessed to me that he came up with that idea at my event when he saw another startup pitching something similar, and they didn't execute it properly. He did. Sequoia has been investing. They've raised, I think they've raised $1 billion. I think they have a valuation north of $10 billion at this point. They're killing it. And they could, why not let people rent that shit out from the cloud? And I've asked him that. I said, Ari, why don't you become the world's biggest, rental enabler so that my stuff is in your cloud? You already have my stuff. For whatever reason, he downplayed it. I don't know why, but
probably we're just too early on it, Tyler.
Perhaps,
right? That's the biggest problem, right?
Yes, in 2021, this idea, and in fairness, I asked them that idea about 16 months ago when he popped by Stockholm. But now that image detection, object recognition is being built into the devices, and identity verification is going to get baked into apps. Boy, this is a perfect case of some ideas are ahead of their time and are dependent on other concurrent synchronous technologies to develop to enable this idea to happen. So,
and the consumer being able to even accept it, right? Like they don't really. I mean, they
and the
kind of
delivery
get it from the top level.
and the 15-minute delivery, because if you're sitting at home and you're like, should I go to Home Depot or buy on Amazon this thing, or I can rent it for half the price of buying it? Generally that's what it comes down to, is rentals are about a quarter to half the price of buying it. So yeah, if I know I'm only going to use it, kind of for 4 days at a quarter of the price of buying it, like a saw, I don't need to go buy a saw. I'm only going to use a saw for this project for 4 days, what have you. So now seems like it could be the right time to try it based on the other concurrent synchronous symbiotic technologies like identity verification and object recognition, which makes it super, super simple for people to fill in all of their items in their house into their rentable, inventory.
And it doesn't even get into some of the nerdy accounting stuff that happens when you rent out property. You can start. Well, all of us could depreciate all of our assets if we really wanted to, and kind of get some of the write-off. But if you do it as a business, it becomes a different dimension.
Yep. So next big headlines at this very moment is Polywork, a business-focused social network in private beta that emphasizes the work people do over job titles. Raises $13 million, led by Andreessen Horowitz, but the other investors are worth noting as well. It happens to be kind of the CEOs, founders, co-founders of several very hot startups, including Reddit and Product Hunt and GitHub and Stripe and Instagram. That's a whole lot of smart founders backing a brand new startup, which is essentially a mobile first version of LinkedIn for younger folks who have gig work.
I have a VIP code if anyone wants to join.
Yeah, I do. Shoot it to me.
Okay, I'll send it.
Right here too. Right here.
I just joined the beta, but it asked me for the VIP code and I didn't know it.
Yeah, I already signed up yesterday. It looks really interesting.
Yeah, but the point is it's mobile first, meaning it's made for 2021, not LinkedIn, which was made in, 2006 or something. And the point is that people's work habits have changed, where they're doing multiple things. I do tech news around the world. That's not normally something I would put on LinkedIn. Many of the things I do, I wouldn't put on LinkedIn. For example, I could help somebody who wants to buy a private island in Asia and make it fully off grid. I could consult you on that, but that's not something I would put on LinkedIn. But this is exactly the kind of the point that they're making, which is people are more multifaceted now, especially young folks who are far more into the gig economies rather than having traditional salary, quote unquote, Japanese salaryman careers where you work at one company for a decade, Anyway, so that's what Polywork is all about. And then the next big headline at this moment is that Google's Pixel 5a will debut by the end of August for $450 with a 6.4-inch display and a hole punch camera and a big battery and 6 gigs RAM, and there you go. And then a new startup called Node, with a K, like knowledge, KNODE, an online marketplace for chemical industry, raises $72 million from Coatue and Sequoia and Sound Ventures. Those are three very good firms, by the way. Sound Ventures, by the way, is Ashton Kutcher, and Sequoia is a very top tier, and Coatue is kind of basically secretly kind of Zuckerberg. It's a back channel Facebook fund. And then CNBC's big headline right now is that users of something called Doximity, which has long described itself as LinkedIn for doctors, finds their newsfeed inundated with anti-vaccine comments from fellow physicians. Oh, good times. You're going to get your shit shut down with that nonsense. And because the politicians are really cracking down on social networks that aren't able to moderate anti-vax sentiments on their apps. Bloomberg's headline is interviews with 50 current and former Blizzard employees detail a toxic workplace where sexual harassment and discrimination against women were common. And this is just the drama that just keeps on chugging. And indeed, it's because the PR team is rather obviously kind of leading this mutiny inside of Blizzard, and they are very well connected with the journalists who keep on writing these stories and causing an endless headache for Blizzard. And it'll be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Huawei reports Q2 revenue fell 38% and is just trying to stay alive as they've been banned by the US. And then that story that we've been going on about Zuckerberg and the FTC. And the FTC, Facebook says they're shutting down this NYU data research project because the FTC told them, they can't do certain things. And then the FTC wrote a public letter saying, hey, Mark, that's not true. That's not what our letter to you was all about. So you have no actual good reason for stopping that NYU research project. Don't use our name as a defense. So we expect an update on that. Now, into the more interesting stories at this very moment. And you're probably, and these are sent in by the beautiful, brilliant people in the audience and on stage who've been combing Twitter. And when they find an interesting article on Twitter that they think would be relevant to the class conversation here in Tech News Around the World, they simply retweet it and add our Twitter account, TNATW, as you see above my head in my photo, to their tweet. And then I see it, and that allows us to pull it in and discuss it with the class, as we're now about to do. So a huge thank you to everyone who's tweeting these in. And, and thank you to everyone who joins Tech News. So the first, what we've noticed is when people start engaging with Tech News Around the World and they join us regularly and they follow the Tech News Club by clicking on the title of the room, and they follow the Twitter account, which you can also see by clicking on the title of the room. When people join Tech News as a community, we've noticed some things. And in fact, our friend in India, Akhil, who used to join us every day in both sessions, we meet twice a day, joined us yesterday to let us know he's not been joining us lately because he's just got engaged by someone he met in the audience in this room in Tech News Around the World.
You're kidding.
No, we're not kidding. So,
Cute.
in fact,
I'm
we
serious.
even spoke with her because she was sitting next to him while he was on his phone, and she was in the audience. He was on stage talking about social commerce. She was impressed of just how smart Akil is, and now next thing you know,
They fall in love.
there you go. Now they're getting married. So there it is. So
Well,
not
okay,
Soulmate.
Tyler,
He said
So
Tyler,
that's
female
getting
version
where's
of
the
him.
engaged.
facilitator?
yeah. Well, I'm going to get my commission. So she used my affiliate link. So anyway, the not only that, but we have seen people's previously, like a week ago, somebody sent a stock chart that showed that their stock chart is getting much better due to tech news around the world, and they showed the before, during, and after. And indeed, there was a very substantial increase in this person's stock portfolio.
Portfolio.
Right
Yeah.
now, I would encourage you to go to the Tech News Around the World Twitter account right now, where the most recent tweet under our little shop photo is from Marcus Landstrom from Sweden, where he says, since joining Tech News Around the World, not only am I losing weight, where he shows an actual chart of his digital scale that he weighs himself every morning, he's gone from 115 kilograms down to 105 kilograms. And then he also shows another chart of his stock chart, which is also gone from about 89 up to about 114 over the past 3 months. So, as he says in his tweet that I just retweeted, since joining Tech News Around the World, not only am I losing weight, my stock is gaining too. I started to meditate. I built up the courage to start working on a book, Endgame, Amazing Magic by Steep Decline, Cal Patel, and Cheryl, and all you other beautiful contributors. Too much to mention, or too many to mention. So a huge applause to Marcus, and congratulations on joining.
Yay!
And we do notice Marcus in the audience every day. Glad to see you're losing weight and your stock portfolio is performing well, and you're meditating and you're doing a startup, and Akil got married, and other people's stock is doing well, and people are getting smarter and happier, and their mothers are getting more proud of them. It's amazing.
And Tyler,
Yeah.
totally seriously, like, I'm a new CEO. I'm usually a one-man band, and I'm now leading a big team. And this has really helped slow the game down for me. Meaning, when people start playing football at the NFL level, they talk about how fast the game is, and startup life is very fast. You wake up on Monday, you might have great news, and on Friday, you're ready to quit, and this has really slowed the game down for me in the critical thinking department, like, why is somebody doing something? How do you structure deals? How do you, negotiate? And it's been really good, Tyler. I know it sounds like blowing smoke, but I think everyone in the room, we're addicted to this learning. It's a lifelong learning process, and we're addicted to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tyler, I have to chime in with Chris because I've stopped thinking of you as Tyler now, and now I call you in my head you're Professor X.
There you go. So the we're still getting better all the time, but it's fantastic to see people are benefiting. And so I shared that tweet out from Marcus. You can see it for yourself. He's losing weight and his wallet's getting heavier at the same time. I love it. So
wait. In the meantime, anybody else want to come on a stage? Please raise your hand now.
Yep. So thank you, Cheryl. There's Daniel in here, Nandu. The problem is we got just a whole bunch of dudes who are raising their hands, that we need to keep it a little balanced on stage here. So Gabby raised her hand. There we go.
Yeah, Gabby.
There we go. And no, it's not that we don't like all the guys raising their hands. It's Daniel can jump up because he's an old schooler.
Ranjif is there.
I don't see him.
Hey, Tyler, I wanted to tell you earlier when you were going through the Epic the Game thing.
Yeah.
I always say this, but I live in North Carolina right now.
Yep.
And so Tim and Mark are actually part of my car club. So when they tip me off on what's next, I'll let you guys know, because I actually interact with those guys.
Okay.
They bought Cary Town Center, a mall down here, to be the Epic Game headquarters.
Nice.
I think last year. And then they also, behind the scenes, kind of invested in a racetrack in Virginia. Most don't know. So they're on the way to making big changes. I was surprised to hear this.
Cool. Keep us updated on that. That sounds like good stuff could happen there. So let's get into these other headlines that people are tweeting in. And you can tweet in too. You simply, any tweet that you find that you think we should discuss, just add our Twitter account to your tweet, which is TNATW. It's as simple as that. And then we'll either like it or retweet it to our 4,200 Twitter followers, and which is growing quite quickly. So here's some tweets that just came in. Well, here's one from a guy named Cal Paddle. Cal Patel? Paddle? Anyone heard of this guy?
Cal.
Okay, sorry. Cal Patel. Looks familiar. I think I've seen this guy before. He sent in a tweet from CNBC. He's on vacation with his educator wife and his 2 kids. It's their time of the year that they spend together as a family. And the headline is Amazon aggregators like Thrasio and Perch are raising billions of dollars. Nearly 70 Amazon aggregators have popped up in the last couple of years, raising $7 billion in capital to buy up smaller businesses that sell on Amazon. Indeed, this is a huge thing that's happening. And the headline from CNBC says Amazon aggregators like Thrasio and Perch are raising billions to buy mom and pop sellers in a crowded market. That's true. Here's why. Because mom and pop sellers who are on Amazon often are not really good at selling on Amazon. It's something you get much better at as you do it. And some people are better at it than others, especially people who have lots of awesome tools like A/B testing that we talked about when we met here last time. And if you have all the latest tools and you're a true geek and you become a master at e-commerce, but you find other good shops who you think have a lot of potential if they had your tools, well, maybe you acquire them. Similar to how a properly run hotel might buy a hotel that's very promising, but the team doesn't really know how to run their hotel, and you buy their hotel because you've got more guests asking for rooms than you can handle. You need more rooms. So you buy that other hotel, you manage it, you maybe fire most of their staff, you keep their good people like their cleaning team, but you don't need their marketing people or their operations people or what have you. So you end up continuing to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow because you know how to grow a hotel business, and there's other hotel businesses that are not as good at you as running a hotel. You get all the demand from the e-commerce websites. You're ranked number 1 in booking.com or Airbnb. You're getting all the traffic. This happens in Amazon as well, where the people who are ranked at the top of Amazon get all the traffic. They know how to run the show. They know how to do the advertising. They get all of the traffic. They need more products to sell. Same kind of issue. So what they do is they raise money and they go start buying up all of the B-list and C-list Amazon sellers, the mom and pops on Amazon. And that's what this article is all about. That's kind of a form of consolidation inside of Amazon. So you're getting kind of, what's called a roll up in private equity, where you start rolling up all of the, the smaller brands, for lack of a better word, into a mother brand. And that gives you additional advantages because now the smaller brands work as additional arms on the octopus to feed into, the mother brand. So, and they cross promote each other. We see this in YouTube as well, where really successful brands start buying up smaller YouTube channels to add them to their mother brand. And this is an age-old game, even predating the internet. But anyway, the internet just expedites the whole thing, accelerates it. So that's the headline. Amazon aggregators are in the midst of a buying frenzy. They're trying to entice sellers who have successful brands on Amazon with incentives like Tesla giveaways and exclusive parties. Some of the biggest Amazon aggregators, Thrasio and Perch, have valuations in the billions of dollars. In July, they were among the many companies in the space attending the Proper Show, a popular conference for Amazon sellers. The marketing and recruitment dollars were flowing as they sought to lure sellers to join them. people giving away a Tesla, just a lot of talk on the commissions if you're able to bring in a deal. And just to be honest, it's like the talk of the town, said Casey Gauss, a vice president of Thrasio, which has raised $1.75 billion and acquired more than 125 Amazon brands since it was founded in just 2018. Wow. Following the success of Thrasio and others, the number of aggregators has grown rapidly in the past few years. There are now at least 69 Amazon aggregators based in 12 countries, and they've raised more than $7 billion collectively. Micro brands have been taking off for a long time, and I think it's getting to this tipping point, said Chris Bell, who founded Perch in 2019. Perch has raised $900 million from investors, including Spark, and has acquired more than 70 brands. I think there's a confluence of Amazon Marketplace becoming more mature and kind of hardening, if you will, around the edges to make it more trusted. And then the pandemic, and I think just a lot of people noticing that this was possible and coming after it. So there's that article that I'm right now tweeting out to the Tech News Twitter account for those who want to read the rest of it and learn all about all of that consolidation. And then Vinay, just thank you to Cal Paddle for that one. And Vinay just sent one in about Starlink from India today, that Starlink satellite internet by Elon Musk is now as fast as fiber broadband. Almost. Starlink, which now has close to 90,000 active users, has almost superseded the speed of traditional satellite internet. SpaceX's Starlink satellite has matched up to the speed of broadband, a speed test has found. A new report by Ookla speed test has revealed that the speed of the Starlink now close to the speed offered by wired broadband, and CEO Elon Musk has announced the company will enable global coverage after crossing the strategically important threshold of 69,420 active users, which is a joke if you understand Elon Musk's sense of humor. So thank you for that one.
Hey, I just want to add one thing to that.
Yeah.
So in India, Starlink is actually going to be applying. There was an article about an application to the Department of Telecommunications for a license. So they want to be legit in all of the countries, and they're doing it in a few other countries as well. So they're going more formal launch to avoid any future controversies. So that's interesting as well.
Okay. So Evan just found one. What's this, Evan, about this drone-looking thing?
Yeah, more drones every day. Another, long haul, medium haul drone.
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Canada's RPV Aviation attains permission for fixed drone flights. So
cool.
This looks like vertical takeoff landing can transition from vertical to efficient forward flight, and line of sight permission is kind of a big deal because it can do long range tasks that require, sort of approval. So
yeah, and why don't you go ahead?
More drones. Yeah. Canada has lots of remote areas, obviously, so this is kind of interesting.
They need more longer range stuff. Why don't you go ahead and do this other one about escort industry tokenized by Swiss blockchain company?
Well, not something I know about, but interesting that when it comes to privacy and data protection, data privacy, blockchain is now being applied to the adult escort industry. So keeps adult entertainers, sex workers, basically keeps their identity secure and I guess encrypted, and payments and services can be exchanged on the blockchain now. So I guess that was coming for a long time.
Okay. And then
in clubs. So yeah, no, interesting.
One more you've got here about an infrastructure bill introduces per mile road tax.
That's interesting. I mean, I think usage based pricing for cars has been coming for a long time, and this is obviously now coming to the U.S. in some way. Beyond tolls, basically. I think in the near future, we'll all be charged by how much we use our cars instead of tolls and toll roads. So I think it's a good development, for reducing congestion. And it's basically usage pricing for your car.
Yeah, and by the way,
tax-wise.
Yeah.
were you still in California when that was being floated around here, and we were like, hell no?
Yeah, because we're all stuck in our cars all the time. So,
Well,
but
it was the tracking thing, and no one wanted to have the
oh,
government
right.
know how far we were driving and all that.
Yeah, I mean, we already have Fast Pass in New England, so you're basically you pay electronically through a toll, but this would be obviously the next step in the process. But it looks like it's in the bill, so we'll see.
Okay. So we were just talking about the Starlink, and then Renjant just found this one from OneWeb, which is the Indian competitor. And so OneWeb receives license to provide satellite broadband services in India in 2020. So it's making, executing and getting the proper permits in place to make that inevitable thing. So thank you for that, Renjant. And then we got Evan's Canadian drone one. We got a new one here from this Cal Paddle guy. He's really persistent with these tweets. He finds really great tweets. This one is from CNBC. It says, why millennials and Gen Zs are jumping on the buy now, pay later trend. The buy now, pay later trend has spawned companies with huge valuations like Klarna at $46 billion and Afterpay, which Square will buy for a $29 billion deal. But the question remains, why are millennials so hot on buy now, pay later? And they allow customers to make purchases in installments, are growing in popularity in the US. Younger generations are hopping on the trend to save money, buying clothes and keep up with their peers instead of using traditional credit cards. Well, why not rent your clothes, by the way, eh, Chris? What do you think of that, huh? And then buy now, pay later trend has spawned companies with huge valuations like Klarna and Square and whatnot. So there you go. It
What
tells
you
us
mean?
now.
The comment is what they say it save money?
Yes, it says
Oh my goodness.
all 21-year-old Taylor Emmy wanted was a cosmetic kit from makeup artist and social media star Jeffree Star after watching a video about the brand on YouTube in October 2019. So she took the $144 leap, and nearly 2 years later, she shelled out thousands on makeup brands she normally couldn't afford thanks to buy now, pay later platform known as Afterpay. Obviously, I really like the things and want to collect them, but I would have never been able to have half of it without Afterpay, she says. Buy now, pay later platforms that allow customers to purchase on installment plans are growing in the US, and younger Americans seek new ways to purchase high-ticket items like computers and designer clothes with lower wages are obsessed. And designer clothes with lower wages. So, yeah.
This buy now pay later topic was brought up in Singapore parliamentary discussion.
Mm-hmm.
One of the MP actually asked the Prime Minister about this.
Mm-hmm.
There's three questions that was brought up. First one, what are the measures implemented to prevent the young or compulsive buyers from taking on too much debt? Number two, whether there are plans to verify the income of those using these platforms for purchase.
Mm-hmm.
And the third one is whether a centralized system can be used to check the advance taken between credit cards and this platform, because many people, especially those young people who think that they can get good deals, and that what you say just now, they may be over leveraged. I think Messi has something to share, but she's on the phone now. Because I think just now during the fintech news, Messi actually shared that in Africa, there are people who go online to different platforms to so-called use this buy now pay later service in various platforms. So definitely it sounds like they are over leverage.
Okay.
No, you're right, because actually when you start thinking about the fact that we're changing possibly to a social credit score, the youth or the people that are using the tool that are less financially educated are going to misuse it, and it's another disadvantage to them because they don't know any better.
Okay. So the next big headline at this very moment is a Trump-era policy that shut out top Chinese students could be hurting America more than Beijing. It says when Dennis Hu came home to China for the 2020 Lunar New Year, he thought it would be a brief visit. He planned to enjoy the festivities with his family, renew his U.S. visa, and then head back to Boston to continue the fourth year of his doctorate in computer science at Northeastern University, but a year and a half later, he's still stuck and has no idea when he'll be able to return to the U.S. Who is one of more than 1,000 Chinese students who spent years working towards studying at a U.S. university only to have their studies stalled, first by COVID and then by an ambiguously worded visa ban imposed under the Trump administration. Faced with the perceived threat of Chinese students conducting espionage on U.S. soil amid heightened tensions with China, then U.S. President Donald Trump introduced the ban that effectively prevents graduate science, technology, engineering, and math students from several Chinese universities from gaining visas to the U.S., the world's biggest research hub. But the Chinese students affected say they aren't spies at all. And some have become so frustrated at the lack of clarity that they're crowdfunding for a lawyer to start legal action against the U.S. government. The ban is based on simple presumption. If you have been to a certain school, you will be targeted and labeled as a spy, who says, I think it's a policy of discrimination based on nationality. The combination of the ban and the pandemic have led to a complete derailing of students' studies, their careers, and their lives. Experts say the issue goes far beyond the individual students who are directly impacted, warning that shutting out international graduate students who contribute to important STEM studies could have implications for the quality of American research. It could also impact the ability of U.S. institutions to recruit Chinese students and exacerbate the already fraught relations between the two countries. And it goes on for a very long time. This is a very long article. So I'm going to go ahead and retweet that article so that people who want to read it can read the whole thing in its entirety at the Tech News Twitter account, TNATW. There you go. Sent. So thank you to whoever sent that one in. And then Lucia from the audience found this interesting one from Wired that says all the ways Spotify tracks you and how to stop it. And she's inviting Daniel Ek to talk about it in Tech News Around the World, which, by the way, he has popped by Tech News Around the World previously. And he's also spoken at my conferences previously. And he even appears in my promo videos to say that he loves my conferences. Thank you for that, Daniel. It's very kind of you. Anyway, what else? It says, whether you're listening to workout music or cooking dinner playlist, the app can show you ads based on your mood and what you're doing right now. And Facebook and Google are the biggest advertisers and powerhouses, but Spotify has ambitions to rival them, and it has all the data it needs to do just that. And what this article, no doubt, is going to go into is Spotify's patent about using your emotions as a signal to send you better recommendations of songs, so they can recommend songs or potentially ads based on your mood and your emotional state, as it says in the patent. And they, of course, they would do that from your microphone, and they could tell that you're happy or you're sad, or your environment, like you're in a cafe or you're in a gym. And so they might give you more pumped up music if they can tell that you're in a gym. And there's very notable, anyone who goes to the gym regularly knows the sounds of, weightlifting plates smacking each other. It makes a very distinct sound. Or the sound of a treadmill whirring is people running on a treadmill has a very identifiable audio signature as well. So really interesting tech, really interesting ways to use interesting tech as well. And but it, as the headline implies, it's opt-in, so to speak. So really, Spotify does all kinds of really interesting stuff, none of which is terribly concerning as of yet. But and there was a group of musicians, kind of led by Tom Morello from Rage Against the Machine, saying that Spotify shouldn't use the tech inside of that patent of kind of emotional signatures, that it could be misused. And Spotify responded by saying that they don't have plans to implement it anytime soon. So thank you for that one, Lucia. And then the next headline that I got here is from Ranjith, that out of Bloomberg. It says, Xi Jinping's tech crackdown ignores bigger problems facing China. The China Federation of Literary and Art Circles doesn't usually weigh in on matters that affect the Chinese economy. It operates in the sphere of ideologies, and it operates in the sphere of ideology, ensuring that cultural output toes the Communist Party line. For that reason, it sponsors the Golden Rooster Movie Awards, China's answer to the Golden Globes. But these days, most everything in China is ideological, including the stock market. So when the Federation and 4 other state propaganda arms issued a sternly worded set of opinions on how to conduct literary and art criticism, investors took the admonishment as a sell signal for a group of listed companies that use algorithms to promote online content. These include Kaishio, Bilibili, Tencent, and ByteDance, which operates the wildly popular TikTok app. Thus, the guardians of China's artistic expression this week contributed to the $1 trillion slide in China tech shares. 1 trillion with a T. As Chinese authorities intensified their assault on the tech sector, investors are desperately searching for a rationale that will clarify which industries will be next targets and which ones are safe, to which we actually know the answer to that, Bloomberg, and we keep calling you out as being completely idiotic and not recognizing the very obvious trend. The very obvious trend is about the declining birth rate, and that's why they're cracking down on video game playing that, as the state has said, isolates people. They're also now cracking down on baby formula, baby milk. Or no, not, yeah, they're cracking down on the profiting of it. Because, Bloomberg, you fucking nutheads, it's about the birth rate. It's really, really simple. They crack down on the cost of education through the ed tech sphere, where companies were getting way too profitable for China's taste and becoming kind of price prohibitive for parents to educate their children. So they ended it so that it would be no longer be a price prohibitive thing for parents to have kids. And then they cracked down on housing costs, because that's also one of the reasons parents said they're not having more kids. And then they cracked down on video game play of dating age individuals. And now they're cracking down on milk formula. And that, Bloomberg, should really make it fucking obvious why they're doing this. If that doesn't make it obvious, Bloomberg, I don't know what the fuck does. When they start cracking down on the price of baby formula, maybe then you start to realize the connection in those other things I just described of cracking down on the price of education and housing and stopping video game play of people being isolated and baby formula. Bloomberg, can you connect those dots somehow? Can I spell it out for you? Is it not totally freaking obvious at this point, Bloomberg, where you say in this article that just came out that the investors are trying to figure out the pattern of what the government might be cracking down on? Or what?
They're waiting for the condom crackdown before it becomes obvious.
Jesus Christ, Bloomberg. And by the way, Bloomberg mistakenly put out a headline last week saying their own opinion that these crackdowns are because China wants to focus on core things like semiconductors. That's why they were cracking down on EdTech. You fucking idiots. Call somebody in Beijing. There's 1.5 billion Chinese people. Call one of them. One of them. Any of them. They're in the streets dancing over the crackdown on the EdTech companies, because that's the biggest cost of having a child, is educating the child. And then they're cracking down on the housing so people can have kids. And then they fixed the one-child policy, made it a two-child policy, then a three-child policy. And at the same time, all these crackdowns are happening, they're now giving a $700 bonus if you have kids. Are you not noticing all of the dots that you should be connecting, Bloomberg? Come on, guys.
And I said like the next move would be diapers, but I think that's wrong because I don't think they use diapers in China, from what I've heard.
Well, they use cloth washable ones. So anyway,
Of course they use diapers.
they use diapers.
No. Well, see, no. This is the whole potty training thing. Is that they start potty training at like age. My wife has potty trained our kids since like 4 months old, and what we hear as parents is that in China they don't the kids are potty trained, so they don't use as much diapers as we do. We're in diapers for like
Okay,
3
the
years.
the rich China the rich Chinese people, they buy lots of milk powder and diapers from Japan whenever they come, or they get these people called Daigou to come and buy for them. They really, yeah, the rich ones can afford a lot of
So check this out. Hang
Pampers.
on. Let me read this article. It says, let me read that paragraph again. As Chinese authorities intensify their assault on the tech sector, investors are desperately searching for a rationale that will clarify which industries will be next targets and which ones are safe. It's, well, like I said, it's really simple. And by the way, it's so simple that Ray Dalio, one of the world's biggest leading investors on the fucking planet, like number 2 next to Warren Buffett himself, realized how stupid your headlines were, that he felt it necessary to go on CNBC to say what I just said right now. That it's the fucking birth rate, you dumb fucks. That's what he said to you, Bloomberg. That's how off the path you are, that he felt the need to actually go say exactly that. And he knows. And in fact, he just wrote an entire book on the subject of investing in China, in case you don't realize how much of an authority he is on the issue. And that's how far off that you were, that he came out and said in the headline of CNBC was the misguided notions of the tech press and tech investors is so out of whack that I have to go take an hour out of my busy schedule to let people know what's really going on. It's the birth rate. That's what it said. That's what the CNBC article said. We read it here in this room. So now that Ray Dalio, one of the richest people on the planet, one of the best investors in history, has gone and done that, and you still don't understand what's going on, Bloomberg? And you're getting paid for this shit, Bloomberg. We're over here in the corner of Clubhouse, right? On a $50 a month budget. You're a huge you're a huge multi-billion-dollar news association or organization, and you can't connect these dots? What's going on over there at Bloomberg?
Ping them in?
Huh?
Can someone please ping them in?
Jesus. Anyway, I'm giving up.
I missed that last part. Did you say this is about the birth rate? Is that what you were saying?
Anyway, so
Drink some water, Tyler.
let me drink some water. Andrew Brown, he wrote this article today, August 7th. Andrew, come on into Tech News Around the World so we can set your shit straight, son. Andrew, son, come on in. Andrew Brown, I'm calling you out, Andrew. Let's get you into the Tech News program. We're going to get you smarter, more beautiful, healthy. We're going to
Let's turn him around, man. Let's make him the best writer.
Andrew, we see you on the Titanic over there on the USS Bloomberg. We're going to throw you a buoy. Okay, Andrew, we're going to put you in the lifeboat. We got a life preserver here and a flare gun with your name on it, Andrew. We're calling you out. Come on in. We're going to get you in the lifeboat. We're going to get you out of that icy water because we see you heading for the Titanic. We see you on the Titanic heading for the iceberg. God help you. And the SS Bloomberg. So, I just tweeted that out in case you thought I was joking. I was reading that shit verbatim, and now you can see it from the Tech News Twitter account. Thank you to Renjin for that one. The next one from Dr. Fran, which says the Perseverance rover on Mars, first drilling attempt on Mars turns up empty. NASA said the Perseverance rover's first drilling attempt on Mars was unsuccessful, failing to collect any rock during the effort. And you can see the drill hole that it made and the dust that came out of the drill hole in the photo that I just twatted on Twitter. Thank you, Dr. Fran. So it looks like, Dan, you've got a green tech headline you want to share from the New York Times Climate.
Whoop, let me connect here.
Yep.
I was just talking about, obviously we're facing climate risk more and more, and this is a study that shows that $1 spent to prepare for disaster saves an average of $6 later, according to the federal research. And Biden administration plans to provide a lot more money to prepare for climate change. We'll be spending more and more on that, of course, as time goes on. There's 3 choices: mitigation, adaptation, and suffering. So this is part of the adaptation budget. The suffering budget's going to grow as well because we're not doing much mitigation. The other big news that will be big news is coming out on Tuesday is the IPCC physical science report that hasn't been updated, I think, since 2013. There's all these different reports, and this is sort of the climate science report. So there will be tremendous coverage of that starting basically on Tuesday, and we'll be hearing lots of stuff. There's going to be a focus. I mean, there's a few leaks about it. One will be a focus on the need to reduce methane, because methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas, doesn't last a long time like CO2 does. But if we want to stay under 1.5, which, by the way, is kind of impossible at this point, there still needs to be a strong focus on reducing methane, which actually is somewhat easy to do because you just have to plug leaks all over the place. That's where a lot of it comes from. Anyway, there's other things, just a little for people interested in veganism as a climate issue. We'll be doing a room on that tomorrow at 10 a.m. Pacific time on the Climate Chat Club, where it's a special room where you're not allowed to talk about why veganism is good. You're only allowed to talk about how it could possibly scale to be a climate solution. So that'll be interesting, I think. And
Dan,
yes,
I live to eat.
I didn't hear you there.
I say I live to eat. I don't live. I don't eat to live. I eat everything.
Well, that's fine. I stopped eating beef because I understood its climate impact. It's like 10 times worse than the next thing, chicken and things like that. But some people, yeah, there's lots of reasons to be vegan. You know, you can do it for moral reasons, health reasons, and a lot of people do it for climate reasons. So the idea of this room is not to talk about why it's a good thing to do. It's only to talk about, is it possible to scale? Because, just changing one person at a time probably is not going to make much of a difference. So I don't know the answer to the question, by the way. I'm interested in hearing it. That's why we're doing the room. But should be an interesting discussion. But just overall, climate's going to really take center stage next week as this report comes out and tells us, a little bit about how screwed we are and how urgently we need to act, because we're still not acting really
But
urgently.
Cheryl,
And
you could have the best of both. You can have your cake and eat it too with the lab grown beef.
by the way, Tyler, I agree with you, and I think that's actually how we'll address the beef. So there's a little bit of controversy I should throw out there that there's a bunch of vegans, and I actually interviewed the guy who wrote the report, who says that animal agriculture is 87% of emissions, which is not really possible because we do know how much fossil fuel emissions we have because we could actually directly measure it. And if that was only 13%, then you'd have some huge amount of emissions in total that would mean that global warming would be happening much faster than it is. So putting that aside, it's still by mainstream science says it's about 14% of emissions, or you can think of it as cows being emitting as much as cars do. So it is a really big piece of emissions. No one doubts that. But the question is, what can we do about it? I agree with you that I think one of the paths is cell-based meat and plant-based meat substitutes. Once you have meat that's cheaper, tastier, and healthier than the original kind, there should be a strong path, to switch over. So I think that's going
That's
to happen
not
this
real
decade
meat.
sometime.
Technically, it
It's a little
is.
hard to hear you, Cheryl.
She says it's not real meat. So
I think that's the biggest problem is it's going to be the psychological and marketing side of it. It's not going to be the technology side of it that's going to determine how successful it is.
yeah. So we covered.
Hi, this is Elle. Just real fast,
Yeah.
just something to think about. But what happens when you let these non-predatory creatures just exist? Like if we do go to this meat diet or whatever, like the cows and the deer, we saw how the deer was devastating the vegetation here in the U.S. when they killed all the wolves, and then they reintroduced the wolves to actually cull the deer population, which in turn the vegetation got better. So what happens if we all supposedly move to this non-meat diet? You know,
Well,
there's a cause and effect to
Yes,
everything.
biodiversity.
I don't think we'll be growing as many cows then. I mean, it's a man-made thing, right? So once they kill the last cow for meat because they're switching over, they're not going to you know
Yeah, hey
create a
Dan,
lot more cows.
I'll jump in on two things here. Cows are not indigenous here, at least not in the West Coast, and so they actually do
Yes,
quite a bit of
exactly.
damage here, and they're not wild like the deer running around in I saw the videos on what they did there and also on Angel Island here in the Bay Area, but cows are not indigenous, and actually most of the there's a big issue here to push for elk, et cetera, that are indigenous, because the damage and the impact on the environment is so much less. But again, cows are agribusiness, and so you're dealing with massive corporations there. And the other one,
Exactly.
Dan, on marketing, yeah, they're. I mean, trust. I eat meat, but anyways, that it's definitely terrible impacts. And if anyone's ever driven by any of these big agribusiness farms, like in California with Harris Ranch and all that stuff. But anyways, or seen the videos. But the other one is on the marketing side. You're also reminding me of when wines went from cork to screw top. Screw top is better for the environment, better for the wine, better everything. But they had a huge marketing battle, and they're
Sure.
getting there. It's 20 years later, but they're getting there. So just
Well, just an interesting
yeah.
statistic, which kind of blows your mind, is that a third of all the non-ice covered land on Earth is used for meat production. A third of all the land on Earth is used for meat production. So it's
I just shared
pretty
an
mind-boggling.
article about the mushroom renaissance and how mushrooms are going to be the next wave of alternative proteins.
Mushrooms
Not
are the best, and they're actually a
Oh,
pre-protein, right? That's why they taste meaty. They
mushroom
have
is
protein
yeah,
delicious.
enzymes, and they're amazing, and they're actually a huge part of the ecosystem with the mycelium layer and
yeah.
everything else. Are getting killing mushrooms or taking that out is that's going to have a huge impact. So bringing them
So
back is
I just tweeted an
phenomenal.
article to tech news around the world. So
Okay.
take a look at the Wired
If you
article.
follow Paul Stamets, he gets into a lot of that stuff in detail. It's amazing.
You know, Andrew Zimmerman does talks on this on Clubhouse. He actually did one about a month ago. I want to see if I can. He has a lot of insight on like food production and where we should go with it.
Okay.
Mushrooms are also antiviral, and they've been shown in a lot of different uses. But yeah,
Looking for that. How many minutes ago did you send that, Evan?
I just tweeted it a few seconds ago.
Okay.
It's a Wired article.
Okay. So let me retweet that one. I see your here it is. Forget impossible. The fungi renaissance is here. While Impossible and Beyond Burgers grab all the headlines, a much more humble food stuff is poised to lead the next wave of alternative proteins. The mushroom, simple as that. So then I've got a whole bunch of fantastic headlines here. The first one I got right here is from Vinay about the South China Sea. Vinay, what's going on? You on stage?
I think he jumped out.
He jumped
No,
out.
he's not.
Okay.
Oh, he is.
I'm
He
here.
is.
I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
He is.
I'm
Good,
here.
good. And where's Faraz? Faraz says he's in the audience.
Oh, yes.
I'll get him.
Raise your hand,
Go ahead.
So
Faraz.
it's getting crowded in the South China Sea because U.S., Germany, Australia, India, the U.K. all have moved frigates and aircraft carriers for just near Taiwan to do exercises, and China's decided to do their own naval exercises very, very nearby. So it's going to get interesting. Japan's joining as well.
Yeah,
So there's something like
what are they
10
doing
navies
there?
there.
What could they be possibly cooking up over there, all simultaneously? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, they are here to grace the closing ceremony of the Tokyo Olympic, maybe.
Yeah.
For fireworks. They're going to provide the
Yes,
fireworks.
yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Oh my
Exactly what
goodness.
they are going to do.
So it says
Or maybe
the headline from India Times is China begins naval exercises in South China Sea before India deployment, because India's sending their team over starting today, as I understand, August 7th, and to join the navies of many of the other G20 countries who are all there simultaneously, conspicuously around Taiwan for some reason. And just as the vice president's meeting with the Philippines and Vietnam, and there's this whole really interesting thing brewing over there in the South China Sea, to be continued.
It's literally like a high school breakup where it's like, oh man, Johnny's going to the party and he's going with so and so, and like, you know, why is she gonna be there? Oh my God, shit's going down tonight. Like, let's go check it out.
do you think they will try their drone light show?
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be a really interesting drone show.
Chris, did you say why is she going to be there? Literally she?
Oh, that's funny. Okay, I still don't see Froz. Did Froz make it on stage? I don't see him.
Yeah,
He messaged
he
me
is in
too,
the
but I don't
audience.
see.
I
He's in
don't
the
see him.
audience.
I'm trying to get him on stage. If you see
Oh
him, let me
God.
know. Okay, so he
I,
did.
I
I
can
saw
see him.
him. I saw
Uh,
him. He's there.
third row from the
And
bottom.
yeah, and Anthony
But
is
I know
there
you're on
too.
club deck. Sorry.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I'm on club deck. That doesn't help. Froz, raise your hand so we can get you
For us,
up
raise your
quickly.
hand.
Okay.
Anthony, if you wanna come up, raise
After
your
the next
hand.
story here. So the next one
Yep.
I got is, well, where'd it go? What is this one? It's from Amay. Marvel to launch Spider-Man NTF collection. And now
NFT.
NFT collection. Marvel Entertainment has announced its Spider-Man NFT collection and will be launched on the VV marketplace on Saturday, August 7th. That's today. And as any comic book collector knows, Spider-Man is about as good as it gets with comic book collecting, which is a huge space. I mean, there's huge conferences about it. Some of the incredibly huge conferences about comic book collecting called Comic-Con, which is what it all started with, and it somehow turned itself into a movie premiere platform. But anyway, yeah, comics are a very big deal. Spider-Man's probably the biggest deal in comics, and so it makes perfect sense that he would be doing an NFT. So the next one is from Lucia again, an interesting article titled Warner Boss Steve Cooper Talks TikTok and Peloton Revenues and the rise of virtual artists and the value of record labels. And being the boss at Warner, that's an interesting interview indeed. I'll just give you a little taste. It starts off by saying, it's been just over a year since Warner Music Group floated on the NASDAQ on June 3rd, following a delay of its IPO caused by uncertainty over the coronavirus pandemic. According to Warner's Music Group CEO Steve Cooper, speaking on the company's fiscal Q3 earnings call this week, Warner Music Group's first year as a publicly traded company, despite the home confinement, has been one of the most satisfying in my career, he says. This is the case, he says, because Warner Music Group's artists and songwriters, backed by our outstanding team, have accomplished so much during a very trying time. Some of those accomplishments were highlighted this week, and we're really fortunate that in looking back over the third quarter, we can celebrate extraordinary achievements out of our global team. Entertainment consumption habits have been changing swiftly during COVID. We continue to keep pace, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it's a long interview, basically. It's based on his all of his choice quotes from the quarterly earnings report, where he does talk about TikTok and Peloton. So if you want to hear his juicy quotes from that interview, I'm tweeting that out right now to the Tech News Twitter account at
Faraz is fading. I think he's starting to age prematurely too.
like in Back to the Future when the parents were fading.
Yep.
Yeah, when they couldn't get the time machine back. So the next one's from Sagar, and the headline is Massive Melting Event Sinks Billions of Tons of Greenland Ice Amid Heat Wave. An unfathomable quantity of ice slipped into the ocean during a recent heat wave that featured record-breaking temperatures and rainfall amongst Greenland. And that, in addition to causing kind of ocean level rising, it's now being discussed by climatologists around the planet that there's a report recently that this could also be what's slowing down the Gulf Stream. Is all this huge?
That is part of it. Yeah, the fresh water entering the ocean from Greenland is definitely part of the process that affects the Gulf Stream. In fact, a long time ago, really long time ago, there was an ice barrier during the Ice Age that was holding all this fresh water back, and it broke and let lots of fresh water into the ocean at one time, and that shut down the circulation pattern back then. So that's definitely part of it, and it's actually, you can see the result of all this melting cold water, because even though the Earth is warming almost everywhere, right below Greenland is a spot that is at a record cold temperature in the ocean, and that's because of all the melting going on. So it's a big deal.
Yeah, and just to put a fine point on that, as if ocean level rising might not be concerning enough. If the Gulf Stream slows down, it will cause freezing in the north and all kinds of really quite very concerning, and it'll make Scandinavia potentially uninhabitable, maybe even Scotland, even North America. It brings warm water from the equator up to up towards the Arctic across the Atlantic. So it's if that slows down, we could be in deep doo doo. So
But by the way, it already did slow down 30%, so it's already slowing down. A lot of the recent uh, news articles are about how it could collapse even further, which it could do, and we might be committing it to happening by what we've already done. But it's not something that's going to, it's just not something happening next month or next year or anything like that. I mean, we're going to see a lot of other impacts before we see that one. It's more of a question: are we really committing Europe to to an ice age or something? Not an ice age, but to really cold temperatures. Um, in the next, it'd be a big deal when it happens, but it's not something that's very near term. I guess I should just leave it at that.
Yeah. Faraz is on stage now, right? Yeah. Yes. I show him as on stage now.
Yes,
Okay,
he
good.
is.
All right, thanks. So, Evan, you just had this one about multi-day iron air batteries reach commercialization. This could be one of the breakthrough technologies that could really help on that last article about the Gulf Stream.
Yeah, and the Department of Energy invested a huge amount of money in this startup, $200 million. And as everyone knows, I mean, if you can't store all this energy you get through wind and solar, it's not as much value. So pretty cool.
Yeah, the big breakthrough for it is not so much that it can hold energy for a while, because regular batteries can do that too. It's just that it's supposed to be at a price of $20 per kilowatt hour, which is really low. I mean, a lithium battery, which has dropped like 90% in the last 10 years, by the way, used to be $1,000 per kilowatt hour, is now in the $100 per kilowatt hour range. And obviously that's a huge breakthrough for electric vehicles. These iron air batteries can, if they truly come out commercially at $20 kilowatt hour, that would be a huge breakthrough. They won't be used for EVs, by the way. They're big and heavy and stuff. It's meant for stationary energy storage, but still would be a huge breakthrough if they can hit that price point.
It's more for houses and stuff, I think.
Right.
I think it's sort of industrialized locations is a good picture in the article.
Mm-hmm. So the tanks are, we talk about drones and the militarization of drones. Korea just announced they're going to have militarized drones that can launch hand grenades soon. And the headline right now from Popular Mechanics says tanks are vulnerable against drones. Congress wants a fix immediately. Drones might be lightweight and tanks might be, well, tanks, but don't judge them by their size because they're kind of vulnerable from directly above because they're quite strong on the sides. So they kind of need to rethink things with the new militarized drones. And
that means you got aircraft carriers, cruise ships, you got everything that's
yes,
aircraft cruisers, everything is vulnerable to
actually,
drones.
great point, because there was a huge oil tanker off the coast near the Persian Gulf, an Israeli tanker that was just hit by a.
Yep.
What kind of who sent the drone? Do we know?
No, they don't know yet, but they're still saying Iran, and everyone's deciding what to do.
Yeah. Sorry, somebody I cut off. Was that Amanda?
No, it's Jennifer.
Hey,
My initial reaction to that is, I mean, everything's vulnerable to everything, and I just hear that as something by the military to get more funding for new tanks. I mean, we've also got all the cyber and everything else to deal with, right? So.
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm not going to debate you on that one. So the next one is from Anthony, who's listening in the audience. In the headline is, are AI-powered robots the future of healthy fast food models? Accessibility to food made in the safest environment possible is an important goal. Traditionally, fresh food has been costly to serve, but automation will change that. Robotic automation can provide the right economics to make fresh food economics make sense for both the operator and the consumer. Indeed.
Taste. You need good taste.
Yeah. I don't think the taste is going to change. It's the same product essentially. So the next, Evan, you've got this one of in-person classes offered in virtual reality, and seems like a contradiction. But when you see the photo, basically colleges and universities are warming up to the idea of VR universities, where you can attend quote unquote in person via VR, where it feels like you're actually there. Remote presence, I think, is the word that they're looking for.
Ready Player One, is that what we're moving towards?
Yeah, but the idea that colleges
Did anybody
are
watch
kind of stuck with remote learning that people don't value as much, but in VR they might. So potentially they could maintain their regular pricing if they do VR instead of Zoom calls, which from their side, that just means all the students buying a VR headset, which for a college student is, the cost of a textbook for a biology class. So if they get require everyone to buy a VR headset, um, yeah, then they might be able to keep their position, and it can open up a whole new, a way to approach to higher education.
Yeah,
we
far
want
more
to
Um,
far
improve
more
our infrastructure.
engaging than the Zoom. But hey, did you guys actually? You might have already covered this because it's already in the news. Facebook had to stop shipping Oculus because they were having issues with the silicone.
Yes, and they're
Yeah.
starting again like mid
Right.
August. Yeah, because of the iPhone connector thing was kind of funky. Yeah.
Hey,
Tyler,
can
I
I
just
just
want
say
to,
so? But in
sorry.
order to improve the to move forward towards that, because I know that's what they've been trying to do in my area, you have to improve the infrastructure first. Most of the people, especially that have dots, they don't even have adequate internet servers or coverage in the area, and some of the places around here aren't even covering fiber. We just fibered across the county here probably 2 years ago, and we still have a bunch of rural areas that need to be covered as well. So I think, it's a great thought, but we have to do some of the basic things first. And
Yeah.
also the silicon thing for Facebook, I mean, all they had to do was buy a plastic cover. I have the plastic cover on my Oculus, and I haven't had a problem. So people just kill me sometimes. But that's all I had to say. Thanks.
Okay, so Dan just found a really.
Tyler, just a
Uh-huh.
quick one on that. I don't know how many of us have actually tried AR, VR goggles. I used to love them at the thought of them until recently. I tried something with my kid. I have trouble wearing this thing for like 5 minutes, man. I don't know how one can spend an hour in this thing, or 2 hours in this, or 3 hours in this, going to university in this. I mean, is this really something that a lot of people are going to be able to do in the long run? I mean, I'm beginning to doubt the overall compatibility of us as human beings with this, at least from my perspective. I don't know how many of these people on stage are able to do this. I mean,
Well,
JP,
you're not meant to
I,
stay in there like all day. I mean, I think it's good that you can only be in there, but for so long. Can you imagine kids being like obsessed with just staying in VR the whole time? I mean,
no,
you wouldn't want that.
what I mean to say is, can you do an hour-long class in it? I can't do 15 minutes in it.
I've done an hour in it, but like again, I mean, it's the technology is improving. If you don't get the 250 like I have, the 68, 64 should be adequate enough to run what you need. So it's just on preferences and
I
whatnot.
think one of the important things that schools and universities are going to have to consider is not enabling the multitasking component, especially if you're going to be in a VR environment where you want the students to be fully engaged, opposed to Zoom, where you could just like, go on Twitter or go on YouTube and start like getting distracted. Especially since Facebook enabled, Oculus enabled multitasking, and now being able to just use multiple apps on the side opposed to being fully concentrated in your own environment. So that's something that they have to consider very carefully.
Okay, I got a whole bunch of headlines to blaze through. Let's do some of these as fast as we can here. There's Evan. Oh, we just did your multi-day iron air batteries, which dropped the lithium is about $100 per kilowatt hour. These are about $20 per kilowatt hour, which would make an absolute no-brainer. It would make it way cheaper than buying power from any city power grid system, essentially. So it essentially push everyone very quickly into solar for their homes, which would be fantastic. So anyway, the next one, Evan, you had this one. Bottled water is 3,500 times worse for the environment than tap water, say scientists.
Okay.
I mean, it's interesting that was quantified in that way. I hadn't heard that number before. Pretty shocking.
Yeah, it may not be shocking that bottled water is bad for the environment, but scientists have crunched the numbers to work out exactly how much worse due to the waste and whatnot. There was somebody jumping in there? Who was that?
Nope.
No, I thought I heard somebody. Okay. So the next one I got here is also from Evan. NASA is recruiting for year-long simulated Mars mission. Where's that?
Who's in? I'm in.
You're in. Where's it going to be? We're not sure.
Let me check. In a desert somewhere, I bet.
Not Thailand. So it says Mars is calling. NASA is seeking applicants for participation as a crew member during the first 1-year analog mission in a habitat to simulate life on a distant world set to begin in fall 2022.
I'll do it, but I want access to tech news around the world.
Okay, let me talk with them. As NASA ventures farther into the cosmos, the astronaut experience will change. In preparation for the real-life challenges of future Mars mission, NASA will study how highly motivated individuals respond under the rigor of a long-duration ground-based simulation. The series of missions, known as Crew Health and Performance Exploration Analog, includes 3 1-year Mars surface simulations based at NASA's Johnson Space Center. The analogs will support research to develop methods and technologies to prevent and resolve potential problems on future human spaceflight missions to the Moon and Mars. The analog is critical for testing solutions to meet the complex needs of living on the Mars surface, says Grace Douglas, lead scientist for NASA's Advanced Food Technology Research effort at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston. So it's going to be in Houston, but you're going to be in a building in the middle of nowhere at a space station. What? I think it's simulations. Simulations of Earth will help us understand and counter the physical and mental challenges astronauts will face before they go. Each mission will consist of 4 crew members living and working in a 1,700 square foot module, 3D printed, called Mars Dune Alpha. The habitat will simulate the challenge of a Mars mission, including resource limitations, equipment failure, fun, communication delays, and other environmental stressors. Crew's tasks.
They should film it like a reality
Fuck
TV
yeah,
show.
They should. I'd watch it. Yeah, stay tuned to find out if if Evan kills his coworker over the lack of toilet paper. That'd be amazing.
So add the dimension, Tyler. Remember when we were young in college, we had to dial up for internet. It's like, I gotta make a goddamn phone call, man.
Yeah. So crew's tasks may include simulated spacewalks, scientific research, use of VR and robotic controls, and exchanging communications. The results will provide important scientific data to validate systems and develop solutions. NASA is looking for healthy, motivated U.S. citizens or permanent residents who are non-smokers aged 30 to 55 and proficient in English for effective communication between crew and mission control. Crew selection will follow standard NASA criteria for astronaut candidate applicants. A master's degree in a STEM field such as engineering, math, or biology, physical, or computer science from an accredited institution with at least 2 years of professional STEM experience or minimal of 1,000 hours piloting an aircraft is required. Anyone still eligible? Candidates who have completed 2 years of work towards a doctoral program in STEM or complete medical degree or a test pilot program will also be considered. Additionally, with 4 years of professional experience, applicants who have completed military officer training or a Bachelor of Science in STEM field may be considered. If you have a strong desire for unique, rewarding adventures and are interested in contributing to NASA's work in preparing for the first human journey to Mars, click here to learn more and apply. Compensation for participating is available. That doesn't sound so great.
I think I'm going to apply just for the heck of it, see if I get accepted.
Yeah. More information will be provided during the candidate screening process. For more information on the Mars analog mission, visit nasa.gov/CHAPEA. There you go.
I applied and I got dismissed without a warning. This is almost like gorillas. I'm going to complain.
Yep. You got fired during the probation period. Just wait. I got tired waiting in the lobby. They said I wasn't fit to, for the year-long journey. So, that would be hilarious to watch that. That would be
Well, if you can't get into NASA, you can go join Space Force.
true. Yeah, backup plans.
Is fraternization allowed between the Mars cohabitants?
Is procreating allowed? That would be another question. So, Amanda, good to see you back, and even back with a headline. And it's from the Next Web out of Europe, and the headline is: "We don't need any robot pets. Design robot service animals instead," is the headline. And it shows a little robotic dog pet looking thing on the headline. And it says these personal service robots are different from those developed to replace humans in some manufacturing and service sectors. And it's a cute little robotic dog. You can see it from the tweet that I just twatted on Twitter at TNATW.
I love that, Tyler. Sorry to cut you off, because it takes it to a new level of the robot dogs I've been obsessed with. Yeah. So I was like, wow, pretty cool. Businesses are going to try to maybe capitalize off this as well.
Yeah, it looks cool. How the healthcare system ranks against other wealthy countries. Oh, thank you, Edwin, for this fantastic article. I'm not going to tweet it because this gives us a chance to play our favorite new show called Tech News Jeopardy. So the question is, what is how the 11 countries rank on performance? The healthcare in the U.S. compared to other high-income countries. So, what is in the overall ranking between... I'm not going to name the countries. They're all wealthy countries. Who ranks 1 through 11? Let's start with number 1. Who ranks top?
Well, U.S. is 11.
Yes.
Estonia, number 1.
Canada. Singapore. Canada.
Canada or the UK?
Japan.
UK. I would say UK.
Nobody's guessed number 1 yet. So the winner circle.
Unless it's Korea.
UK maybe.
No one's guessed it.
No Singapore?
New Zealand?
No.
Okay, Singapore is number what?
Norway.
Oh, he said top.
I'll start.
Germany.
If you name a country, I'll tell you which place it came in. That might help us get it to number 1.
Singapore.
Okay, it might be Scandinavia. It will be somewhere in Scandinavia.
Denmark?
Yeah. Netherlands? Sweden?
Norway?
Norway?
Oh,
Norway,
Cheryl
Norway.
got it with Norway. There you go.
Ooh.
Damn it.
See, more Southern.
Cheryl joins the winner's circle, where the score is now 2.
High five, Cheryl.
Super oil wealth in Norway.
Tyler, I'm complaining.
Why?
Tyler, can you hear me?
No, you said Norway?
Yes, Messi.
I said Norway long time ago.
Okay, sorry, Messi.
Okay, good. We have a tie.
No, she wins. So I think that means 3 for Messi now, right?
Yes.
Wow.
Okay, let her win.
The score is 3-1 with Messi in the lead.
She's not messying around.
No, she's not.
Yeah, don't mess.
Yeah,
No,
don't mess with
I'm
Messi.
waiting for my gold. No, I'm waiting for my gold.
So number 1 overall ranking of the rich countries has Norway as number 1 medical system. Number 2 is Netherlands. Number 3 is Australia. Number 4 is the UK. Number 5 is Germany. Number 6 is New Zealand. Number 7 is Sweden. Number 8 is France. Number 9 is Switzerland. And number 10 is Canada, and US 11th. Although
I don't think so.
This is of wealthy countries. So you need to have a certain number of GDP, I imagine, to qualify. So I don't think.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry,
Plus the U.S. pays twice as much per person as those other places do, and we have the worst outcomes.
Comparative health, yeah. And by the way, it's only including the wealthy countries. If you include all countries, Thailand ranks above half of these on a global ranking of medical systems. but Thailand's not considered a wealthy country, but yet it still has one of the best healthcare systems in the top 10.
Healthy people. So
Best in terms of what? How is your criteria like?
It's a good question, but if you do the Google, it's from a UN report on medical systems globally. So next,
Did you just tweet that out
Life
already?
expectancy is one of them.
yeah,
By the
life
way,
expectancy
the US
is
does
one of
not
them. Yeah,
do.
and so
Japan is not there too.
Yeah, I just tweeted out that article. It's called Mirror Mirror
Okay, thank
2021
you.
Reflecting Poorly. The United States trails far behind other high income countries on measures of health care affordability, administrative efficiency, equity, and outcomes. So the next article is India to push new drone rules by August 15th, which is, as every Indian knows, is Indian Independence Day. And they're expecting to have terrorist drones attacking its capitals on August 15th, and they're warning their citizens about this. So the Ministry of Civil Aviation of the American government Indian government is likely to publish the new rules for its use by August 15th. These rules will replace the unmanned aircraft system rules that were released in March this year. The ministry released the updated drone rules for public consultation on July 15th. The deadline for consultation ended August 6th. And here's the quote. After approval by the law ministry, it will go for publication in the Gazette of India. We are working hard to get this published by August 15th. Amber Dubey, Joint Secretary of the Ministry of Civil Aviation and the head of the Drones Division, was quoted as saying, according to the proposed rules, an interactive airspace map with green, yellow, and red zones will be displayed on the Digital Sky platform. The same will be displayed on the Digital Sky platform within 30 days of the publication of the drone rules. And there it is. So next headline is from Evan about Intel upcoming U.S. fab will be a small city, costing between $60 and $120 billion. So we can now add Intel to the list of big tech giants making new smart cities. Which,
by the way, very very few jobs involved in semiconductor manufacturing these days. So lots of money, but not like a job boom.
Yeah. So we are looking broadly across the U.S. Intel told the Washington Post this could be a very large site. So 6 to 8 fab modules, and in each of those fab modules between $10 to $15 billion. It's a project over the next decade on the order of $100 billion of capital, 10,000 jobs. 100,000 jobs are created as a result of those 10,000 by our experience. So essentially, we want to build a little city. That's not even that little by American standards of 100,000, and it's not even a parking lot by Chinese standards. But at this point, Intel does not disclose which nodes the first module of the fab will support or where it'll be. They're looking all over the place. We're engaging with a number of states across the U.S. today who are giving us proposals for site locations, energy, water, environmentals, near university, skill capacity, and I expect to make an announcement about that location before the end of the year. So they're going to make a city, probably with their own housing, their own data, their own smart toilets to analyze your, output and everything else, their own hospital, their own cafe, and everything. And yet Google's doing that in San Jose. Facebook's doing it in East Palo Alto, not far from Google's San Jose downtown redevelopment. And Microsoft was doing it where? Somebody can remind me, Phoenix or something like that. And so you got all the big tech companies all doing smart cities. It's kind of interesting. And then we've got this headline from Jeff that WhatsApp lead and other tech experts fire back at Apple's child safety plan, including the EFF and Snowden, and everyone's starting to jump into Apple, opening a Pandora's box of letting the government look at what people have on their devices. And that's going to be continued. So we'll pause that and pick it up again tomorrow. And Lucia on a roll today with another headline, this one from the New York Post. And the headline is Aaliyah. Everyone remember Aaliyah, who tragically died, the Latin American star music phenomena in America, And Aaliyah's music will finally be streamable 20 years after her death. Aside from her debut album, 1994's Age Ain't Nothing But a Number, none of Aaliyah's other music has previously been available to stream or download. You want to know why? I think you know why if you follow tech news around the world every day. Because her family owns the rights to her streaming, not the labels. If the labels owned it, it would have been on those platforms a long time ago. But due to her passing, the rights fell back to the family, and they, so the platforms have had to negotiate with the family directly, or whoever the rights holders are, which are clearly not the labels. So there you go. So next new headline.
So who owned the rights of Michael Jackson's music?
Streaming rights, or what? There's multiple rights for music. There's sellable rights, like to print a physical thing and sell it, or to stream it. Those are two different rights. To perform the music as a band anywhere, like on a stage, also separate rights. To play it on a radio, separate rights. So
but he passed on already, right? So whatever he signed is already void, right?
So the main rights that are the most valuable are what are called the publishing rights, which is the ability to monetize the music. And the publishing rights for who? Michael Jackson? Mm-hmm. I don't know who owns Michael Jackson's publishing rights. I know who owns.
It's the trust, isn't it?
Yeah, I imagine his trust does. So the next article.
He also owned the Beatles catalog, didn't he?
He acquired the Beatles and outbid Paul McCartney for the Beatles publishing rights while he was alive, obviously. And to the ire of Paul McCartney, who was the one who taught him of the value of acquiring publishing rights. And then
why don't I buy the catalog?
Yeah, that's what he said. Well, I want to buy it. And Paul said, yeah, right. Well, I'm teaching you how to do it. You're not going to screw me over and buy my own music when it comes up for sale next year. And he did. So the next headline, also from Lucia, Amazon down. Users report issues with Amazon Prime Music and Alexa as Amazon's been down. Retail giant Amazon's website was experiencing problems across numerous U.S. cities on Friday evening, according to Down Detector. And because it's on their own cloud, Amazon Web Service. The next one, also from Lucia. She's on an absolute tear today from Rolling Stone. The music industry has neglected its DJs. New tech will change the game. World's 3 major label groups partner with new streaming service BeatSource to pay artists when DJ edits are played. Because what DJs do to existing songs does not give them any rights to their edits of those songs. Editors of songs don't have any rights. And that's what DJs do, is they essentially are editing previously the intellectual property of artists who wrote those songs. You as a DJ are not writing melodies. So you don't, and you're not writing lyrics. In fact, you're not really writing anything. You're editing. And so unless you're creating your own music, as many DJs figure out they very quickly need to do, as Avicii did, as, Nuetta did, as all the top DJs do, as Diplo does, as all of the wealthy DJs do. But if you're just mixing stuff, well, that's not a form of intellectual property. That's other people's intellectual property that you threw in a blender and hit mix. And that doesn't give you any rights at all. So, the labels are working with DJs to help give them a little cut in a new streaming service called BeatSource. And this might be kind of interesting because, as you've heard me say here, Spotify is sort of shaping up to go at it and empower unsigned artists without getting label deals. And the labels start to see what that means for their future, which is you're not going to need the labels anymore if you go that route for any length of time in the near future. And so now they realize, we need to go back to the drawing board because Spotify and Tidal are going to circumvent us and we're going to be left hanging high and dry, just like the movie theaters and the movie studios. And so, so they're coming up with a plan B, which is this new streaming service called BeatSource, which works with people like on SoundCloud who are, mixing existing content, and it's going to get very interesting very soon here, and very legal. So the next one's from Vinay about the China doing naval exercises in the South China Sea. We covered that. Okay, next one is from Evan about the infrastructure bill includes per mile road. We did that one. Thank you very much, Evan. The new per mileage taxing. And then Cheryl, what is this one about? Vaccine mandates in the US and Europe are fueling an online black market for bogus COVID vaccination cards. Is that for real?
Ask Gabby.
Gabby, America has a digital card too. Most just don't know it yet. And then the real question is, the card itself isn't going to be so useful if there's a database that is checkable, which I imagine there is. And if they check the...
Yeah, I mean, that's just it, is that they think the card is the proof of vaccination, but it's just actually the number on the card.
Right. It's a printed piece of paper that references the database, and the database is where the real proof is. So you need to have somebody alter the database fraudulently on your behalf to really do it effectively.
So if they are going to implement, the restaurants are going to implement, if you don't have a vaccine card, you can't enter. How are they going to check against the database?
Yep. So
we're doing fake IDs for clubs again, that sort of thing. That's where we're going with the COVID ID thing.
It depends. I think different countries are going to do it.
Well,
differently.
You know where I think it's going.
Yeah, I know where you think it's going.
So the next article is from Renjinth, and the headline is Coronavirus, Unemployment, Crime, Corruption. What worries you the most? So according to a study, Americans were more divided than most countries in what worries them the most between crime and violence and coronavirus and climate change and corruption. And this is a chance for us to play our favorite show of Tech News Jeopardy. So, nation's biggest concerns by share of respondents, naming them in selected countries. Interesting. So, how to do this? Nation's biggest concerns by share of respondents, naming them. Okay. Which country worries about coronavirus the most? There it is. Anyone have an idea?
Australia?
No one's going to guess it. It's Malaysia.
Singapore.
76%.
Our neighbor.
Yeah, you could have. Yeah, you're incredibly close there. So, which country worries about
United States?
Yeah.
United States.
No, not at all. So, in fact, they are. So, which country worries about crime and violence the most?
Singapore.
Sweden. Which country worries about unemployment the most?
Singapore.
South Africa.
United States.
South Africa. And then it goes into the country that worries about coronavirus the second after Malaysia is Japan with 59%. The country that worries about poverty the most is Russia. South Korea is third in its fear of coronavirus. Mexico is second in its fear, behind Sweden in its fear of crime and violence.
Who did this survey?
Are you sure you're asking the question right? Worries about it?
Yes.
Or has implemented restrictions
No.
And worry
worries.
about what?
They asked people what they worry about, and they gave them 5 choices. So, to make it more clear, the choices are coronavirus, unemployment, crime, corruption. What worries you the most? And then Malaysian people said 76% of them said coronavirus. In Sweden, 63% said crime and violence. In South Africa, 62% said unemployment. In Japan, 59% said coronavirus.
So I guess the U.S. didn't top anything because they don't worry about anything.
The thing they worried about, the thing the U.S. worried about, what did the U.S. worry about the most between coronavirus, unemployment, crime, or corruption?
Corruption.
Crime. 33%.
Yep.
So Italy worried most about unemployment with 55%. Colombia worried most about corruption, 55%. Mexico worried most about crime, 57%. South Korea, coronavirus, 57%. Russia, poverty, 58%. Japan, coronavirus, 59%. Sweden, crime. Malaysia, corona, 76%. Kind of wildly worrying about coronavirus at the moment in Malaysia.
So Singapore is not there. No worries.
They were more balanced, so they weren't.
Oh, great.
They didn't overly worry about one thing, which is what would have got them on this list.
Okay, great.
This research is sponsored by the Tourism Department of Moldova. Please come over.
I love it. I was waiting for it, Vinay.
That which begs the question: do they have Subway in Moldova? Because
Renee will open the first one.
Yeah,
there.
let's do it. Let's go open a Subway in Moldova. Another
Making Bitcoin only.
another wonderful week for Indian startups, raising 1.39 billion in funding. Funding in Indian startups this week, August 2nd to August 7th, total funding $1.39 billion. Holy shit. That's what most countries would love to do in a year. My God.
But seriously, Tyler, I live in Bangalore, and you should see there's VCs walking around with briefcases full of cash ready to fund. That's the joke. You go to any coffee shop here with masks on, there's silly money chasing everything here.
Yeah.
It's stupid o'clock now.
Stupid o'clock.
What proportion EdTech, Tyler? What proportion EdTech does it say?
No. It was just for 1 week. 1 week of data. This
So is the secret dressing up something that we really need to get funded as stupid and then getting it funded there?
Yeah, I think if you come up with anything reasonable, you might be able to get it funded in India. It seems like so the Heyman just sent in, it was a conversation with our friend Dave McGinty. Dave tweeted out an article, Why Artificial Intelligence is Being Used to Write Adverts. And then Heyman commented on that. So let's go to Dave's tweet, which I'm now retweeting to the Tech News Twitter account. It's a BBC article, Why Artificial Intelligence is Being Used to Write Adverts. Advertisers are increasingly using AI to come up with their winning slogans. Let's take a crack open on this one that I just retweeted and see what it's about. What springs to mind when you think of advertising? Don Draper in the TV show Mad Men sipping a cocktail, or perhaps trendy people swapping catchphrases in a converted warehouse, perhaps? Well, more of the creative work these days is not being done by humans at all. When Dixon's car phone wanted to push shoppers towards its Black Friday sale, the company turned to AI software and got the winning line, "The time is now." Saul Lopez, head of customer marketing at Dixon's car phone, thinks it worked because it didn't have the words Black Friday in it. His human copywriters had produced dozens of potentially successful sentences, but they all mentioned Black Friday. It was technology that broke the chain of thought. Who's got a mic? Ame. Got it. The software in question is from Phrasey, whose boss is Perry Malm, a Canadian who moved to the UK in 2006. Working in marketing, he assumed the technology existed to boost human creativity. He described himself as flummoxed that this wasn't available. And so Phrasey, the company he set up in 2015, is a product of his perplexed reaction to help bring AI to come up with advertising phrases, essentially. AI can't hurt if it generates interesting suggestions, but it's like sat nav in a car, great for directions, but you don't allow it to drive the car. There you go. He's convinced about this AI future. Combining creative people with AI is the next step for agencies. It's not AI versus human. It generates creative thought, essentially. Helps inspires ideas. So there you go. So I sent that one out to the Twitter account. And this next one's from Dr. Fran about Ariana Grande event in Fortnite, the future of the metaverse. You can watch it now. Just tweeted that out. Cheryl, you've got one here from Nikkei, Japan, that Chinese officials press food delivery platforms on labor rights. Regulators call on Meituan and others to improve worker conditions. And I'm sure we'll hear more about that in days to come. It says Chinese officials press food delivery platforms in China on labor rights to guarantee their workers with income above minimum pay, insurance, and relaxation in delivery deadlines. Okay. And someone sent in one from Hindustan Times. The headline is China warming up faster than the world. Government report. A book published by China's National Climate Center said that 9 of the 10 warmest years since 1901 have been recorded in the 21st century. Well, that's kind of, out of the past 20 years. 9 out of the 10 warmest were in the past 20 years. I think that's kind of obvious. Yeah. So the next headline is from The Guardian. Wildfires burn out of control in Greece and Turkey as thousands flee. Protracted heat wave continues as flames threaten populated areas, electricity installations, and historic sites. And we had special guests join us from Turkey. Thank you to who was it that brought those special guests in? Florian. Yeah, that was amazing. There was people on the ground in Turkey telling us just how screwed up, how it's become incredibly politicized, and the government's not putting out the fires that are taking over some of their resort areas is truly horrific. It's become a wildly political issue, and they're kind of handcuffed due to their politics.
Yeah. Because they don't have the plane to put out the fire.
They have the planes. They're not allowed to use them.
No, they don't have it.
Oh, you mean the particular one that he wants? They don't have. Yeah, they have planes. Turkey has airplanes.
The firefighting planes. Yeah,
they have firefighter airplanes. They don't have the ones that he wanted. Yeah, he wants a particular the biggest and the best one. That's like a 737, which that rarely gets used anywhere on the planet. But yeah, that's what they need because of the size of these fires. Yeah. So the next big article at this moment is from Luke Cast. From The Guardian, it could feed the world. Amaranth, a health trend, 8,000-year-old, and it says indigenous women in the North and Central America are coming together to share ancestral knowledge of amaranth, a plant booming in popularity as health food. It's I just tweeted this out. You can see it. It's pink. Oh, no, I didn't tweet it. Here it goes. Now I'm tweeting it. There it goes to the Tech News Twitter account. It's a Guardian article. It could feed the world. Amaranth, a health trend 8,000 years old that survived colonization. And just over 10 years ago, a small group of indigenous Guatemalan farmers visited northern New Mexico. In the arid heat, the visitors, mostly Maya Achi women from the forested Guatemalan town of Rabanal, showed how to plant the offering they had brought with them, amaranth seeds. Back then, they recently came interested in environmental justice and But it's an interesting article about a potential food solution of a healthy plant. There's a photo of an elderly woman cutting amaranth crop in India. The plant is indigenous to North and Central America, but also grows in China, India, and Southeast Asia, West Africa, and the Caribbean. It kind of looks like a wheat, but it's pink in color.
Tyler, it's not the only one, and there's more like this, and I'm sure Vinay will add on top of this.
Okay.
If you go to the villages in, for example, India, Pakistan, and I'm sure you know about the stuff out of Southeast Asia as well, in the rural areas of Thailand and Latin America, there's tons of these plants that are still undiscovered that we don't know of. But I forget what you call those specialists. Forgive my ignorance. Who are trying to study these and come up with solutions for the long term for food security.
Yeah, absolutely, Faraz. I
You mean botanist?
Botanist, and also for medicine as well. There's Ayurvedic plants, and there's so many of them that they're...
Bang, there you go.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, Tyler, I've got a news item for
you.
What's that? Twitter today went to the courts and submitted in India that they have now completely finished hiring all the roles: chief compliance officer, chief grievance officer, and they've requested for the intermediary protection to be reinstated.
Yep, we mentioned that at the near the top of the hour when we started in the first 20 minutes.
Okay. L, you have a hot mic.
Okay.
Oh,
SL.
sorry.
Okay, I've got 50 more to go here. So, we just got to retweet that one from Amanda. This one from Lucas from NBC News. Half of America is now vaccinated after 8 months in the U.S. vaccination effort. More than 165 million are now fully vaccinated. And then this one also from Lucas. Coinbase customers can now buy crypto using Apple Pay. The crypto space giant Coinbase announced the integration of additional payment methods available to its customers today. And Lucas also one from Bloomberg. China education firms to end most classes with foreign teachers. China's largest private education firm said they will stop providing classes taught by foreign-based tutors to students in the country in response to recent government directive aimed at rectifying the $100 billion sector. Tencent Holdings backed VIP Kids said it will cease selling new such classes effective immediately, and exiting customers can renew lessons only until August 9th, according to a notice on its WeChat account Saturday. Students will be able to finish taking classes from foreign teachers that they have already paid for. So if, I guess Chinese teachers are now going to be leaving China or finding other work to do. There you go. And then the next one is also from Lucas from the New York Times. Biden administration extends a student loan payment pause. The Education Department said it would be the final extension of the moratorium, so that students aren't paying back their student loans. They've been frozen and they're extending the freeze essentially, but for the last time. Snowden joins the battle against iPhone photo scanning plan. Yeah.
So on that particular point, one thing that I haven't seen in the discussion is the fact that, given that there are zero-click exploits, right? Somebody, whether it's a state actor or just somebody who's really malicious and doesn't like you, could put child porn on your phone, and then it just gets automatically picked up, and it's not like there's the attribution of somebody making a report for them to trace for it to come back on the person who did it.
Good point.
I can give you another example too, and I know nobody likes to talk about the kids, but I've had to deal with this, and also working with public safety. I don't know if you guys know the law, but if you send child pornography, or if it's yours, and I mean even as a child, because we have some kids that are pretty wild, they will send another child, whatever photos, and the person, and a lot of time boys get in trouble with this. That's considered child pornography. So when kids do it, what's going to happen? Because I've actually had to deal with that, and I actually contacted the school because I had a little girl send my son some photos of herself, and she was only 13, and he was like 12 or whatever. He was like, "What is this?" And he deleted it, and I have access to his phone, so I actually I called her because she called to tell me that that she didn't think he deleted it, and I went on her, but I had to contact the school and all this other stuff in order to protect my son. So yeah, there's a lot of issues with this.
In some states, it's you're a sex offender for life.
So on that, Eli, I'm aligned with you. I on any app that I have that does any kind of photos, I do not allow access to read for that app to read or write. I just turn it off because the app itself can be hacked and then can potentially
Yeah.
write to your camera roll, right? So that's the other issue.
Okay, more headlines to run through here real fast, and here's the next one. Cheryl, you just sent in one. More people clicked the links of AI generated message than the human written ones by a significant margin. I'm tweeting this out now. It's a story from Wired that basically.
Tyler, that's a breaking news.
What's that?
Infrastructure bill, they just passed a vote to limit debate. Meaning to say that because they couldn't agree on the amendments, right? So they're going to stop that. So they are doing a vote now, and they already passed. They got more than 61 now, meaning to say that they will no longer discuss it, and then they will just pass a final bill for the simple majority.
So what does the language include? Which amendment?
No, because on Thursday, remember, they were trying to debate on the amendments, but they couldn't come up with a conclusion.
Right.
So, but they didn't want to continue debating.
Right.
So today there is two votes. The first vote has passed. The first vote is the vote to limit debate. That means they don't want to debate anymore. So if this is passed, that means the original bill will be sent for the final voting.
Okay, great. Now we just need to figure out which amendment is included in the one they're going to pass.
The original one, I think. Yeah.
The original one completely.
That means the one without amendment, I guess.
Oh, with no amendments, then crypto is completely killed in America, and people will move.
I actually asked Justin about this. He said the infrastructure bill was already finalized 2 weeks ago. More than 2 weeks ago.
Okay. Yeah. So on your article from Wired, AI wrote better phishing emails than humans in recent tests. And so researchers found that tools like OpenAI's GPT-3 helped craft devilishly effective spear phishing messages, which, you know, when people are sending you email scams trying to convince you to click a link that, you know, hacks you, GPT-3 does a better job of it than humans do. They write more convincing what we call spear phishing messages, which is, they're trying to spear phish you and get you to click this link, and AIs can do it better than humans. There you go. So the next one is from Samarth in the audience, and it says Tesla excluded from U.S. vehicle summit, Elon Musk says. Tesla last month reported its first ever quarterly profit above $1 billion on record deliveries. In its 18-month history, Tesla is still by far the biggest, and yet was excluded from a meeting. Tesla excluded from U.S. Vehicle Summit. Tesla.
Can I comment or ask the crowd a little bit about this? Does anyone kind of find it kind of suspicious that Joe Biden is always in a Jeep? Like that there's like product placement now at the at the presidential level where he's constantly getting out of a Jeep.
So here's
I mean, he's appealing to union workers in Detroit and elsewhere. So
GMC,
that's why Tesla wasn't invited to the EV summit, because they're non-union.
Excellent. Thank you for that insight.
Elon, you might want to tell Elon that. He doesn't seem to imply that. The Clean Technica did a tweet 2 days ago saying, will the White House exclude Tesla, the most American-made EV, from its EV event? Elon Musk replied to that tweet saying, yeah, seems odd that Tesla wasn't invited. And then...
But that's the reason. It was, the union, it was a union event, and they're non-union.
Yeah, if a automaker union was the organizer, then that makes perfect sense. And then it wouldn't seem odd. And then...
well, it's odd in any case because Tesla is by far the leader in EVs, and it's 100% American made and all that kind of stuff. Well, they have China now too, but I mean, the U.S. cars are made in the U.S. With very high percentage, by the way.
As are Toyotas and a lot of other foreign car BMWs. Yeah. So it's really just unions.
It says apart from Tesla, the event excluded Nissan, Toyota, Honda, and VW.
So who was there?
However, U.S. Vehicle Summit featured big auto giants such as General Motors, Ford, and Chrysler. So it's a U.S. electric vehicle summit. So it wouldn't include the Germans and the Japanese, anyways.
It's the old boys club.
Okay.
But the thing is like, okay, so for example, every BMW SUV, I think until recently, was made in the United States, like globally. Like all these car companies, Honda's an American car company. Like this is the problem here, like it is a good old boys club.
I mean, those were the companies that were bailed out during the last recession too, right? So, I mean, there's a strong link between the government and U.S. legacy domestic car manufacturing.
Okay. So next big articles happening at this moment is from this guy, Cal Paddle, is really persistent with his tweets. Cal Paddle, something like that. Anyway, Patel sounds familiar. Has a ring to it. It sounds familiar. Mm-hmm. It says, I read the information Apple put out yesterday, and I'm concerned. I think this is the wrong approach and a setback for people. Privacy around the world. People have asked if we adopt this system for WhatsApp. Oh, this is Will, the co-founder of WhatsApp or head of WhatsApp at Facebook. And people are asking WhatsApp if they're going to do the same thing that Apple's doing with scanning your messages for this child abuse content. And he says, no, we're not going to do that. So just retweeting that out. Thank you to Cal Paddle for that one. And then the next article is from Vinay that American Express may partially resume operation in India.
That's right. They've resubmitted the paperwork, and even MasterCard's Deloitte audit report is in. So both of them may get permission to start issuing credit cards again.
Okay.
But American Express is already starting from today.
Okay. Next.
Vinay, did anyone actually ending up leaving? Even Twitter stayed, right, at the end of the day, because they did
Everybody stays.
comply.
Yeah,
Okay.
no one's going.
Too much money. Too much of that sweet, juicy Indian money. The next one is from Mahogany via Nikkei Japan. The headline reads, China tightens grip on key components of tech economy. Nikkei surveys show country with 30% plus share in solar panels, PCs, and more of the global market for 15 key technology products and services. A Nikkei survey shows underlying the challenges faced by countries seeking more independent supply chains. And as China tightens grip on the key components of tech, which, they control 30% or more of the global market of 15 key technology products. And then the next headline is also from Mahogany via Engadget. Says a sealed copy of Super Mario Brothers has sold for a record-breaking price. Anyone want to guess the price?
2.5 million.
2 million.
4 million.
2 million. You got it.
$1.
USD?
You have to guess the price by not
USD or rupiah?
by not
$1, Bob.
What? By the way, I was on The Price is Right in Contestants Row.
Me too.
Were you really?
Were you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a Sigma Nu. He's also a Sigma Nu. He literally had it like rigged for me, and I had to be the jerks. Like, I want to say $1 the whole time.
Yeah.
Tyler, quickly, just if you want, can we backtrack to India for a second?
Uh-huh.
So if we see all of these major companies staying, right? Like you got Google, Amazon, Twitter, etc., and India is the only one that's going to be coming up with challengers to them because no one is actually going to take a chance for China. So let's take the example of Coup. Coup challenges Twitter in the areas of Nigeria and India. This could also kind of be like a proxy buyout where you'll always have a big tech player sitting there as a proxy buyout if someone succeeds in the early stages of their journey, right? So if Coup succeeds to a certain point where they're on their journey, Twitter will just come in and buy them out. So there's always kind of like a backup to startups in India.
I don't think they would buy Coup.
I don't think they would have the chance. I don't think they'd have an option not to, right? India would probably, given the fact that they want to promote their own brands, I would assume they want to promote their own brands unless Vinay disagrees on account of having more information. They would probably find more ways to go against them.
I'm not sure for us. I think it's more because a lot of the venture capital fund and the money behind Coup and others is not Indian money fully anyway, right? So it just happens to have been started in India. And right now, the latest news a couple of days ago was all of these startups are pushing the Indian government to get permissions to go list overseas. I think it's more a capital raising perspective. As long as
I get that, Vinay, but
yeah.
let's be very clear. Mr. Modi is very patriotic about what's happening with his tech startups and with his tech economy, right? So he wants to push his companies. He wants to push India. He wants India out there. He wants Indian names out there. And that one of the biggest reasons that all of this ended up happening was because he saw that a lot of the local companies were getting sidelined. Am I unclear in what I'm saying? Or am I wrong in what I'm saying?
Yeah, Partially right. I mean, it started with, so actually, if you go back to it, it started with kicking out the Chinese apps, and then the Indian stepped in, and then an ecosystem created where there was a realization, okay, so kicking out the international ones is not going to hurt us. So let's put the pressure on everybody now. That's exactly what Twitter and everybody was else made to comply. So this has allowed Indian startups to grow. I do agree there's a preference to it, to Indian companies, but they're not being so overt about it. I don't know if that makes
Okay.
sense for us.
No, it does. It does. I just think if they wanted, it would be a great strategy. From, let's say, if I, God forbid, ever did become the president of India, what I would do, and if I was if I had charge of the tech companies there and wanted to make more for the tech ecosystem in India, was I'd let the big guys stay, but I'd let my little boys grow as well, and I'd make them all comply together. But then it'd be very nice to have an exit strategy for all my little boys as well, and have money come into the country, right? So they could all live together happily, so long as in the long run, Twitter or someone came in and either took over Cool or something like that. It'd always be that end proxy buyout sort of situation.
Oh, that
Tyler,
way is already happening for us. Like Facebook
that's what
already
I'm saying. Thank
invested
you.
in ShareChat, which is another company. Google's invested in a whole bunch, so that stuff is happening anyway, in spite or despite the government, right? Because Ku and a lot of the others are Indian language capability, so they're a sweet add-on for guys like Twitter. So they're
Is
going to
there a
Okay.
do that anyway.
percentage? Is there a
So
percentage? Is there a requirement on the percentage ownership by Indian?
no,
Not for tech.
sure. I don't.
Not for
There's
tech.
no percentage ownership, but what I'm trying to get at is these are proxy investors. When you get these sorts of investors, highly likely that you're always going to have some sort of backup capital come in. God forbid something goes wrong with the company. Tyler, am I incorrect?
I'm reading the future headlines here, so I'm just not tuning into this one.
Okay.
I'm with you, Faraz. It's almost like having a customer lined up before you start investing in the company, right? Like
Exactly.
you
So
have like a
you have a
buyer of last
backup.
resort.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. I'll leave it at that. Sorry, Tyler.
No
I
worries.
just wanted to get
Okay, here we go.
some further clarity on.
No problem. So we got this one here from Anthony in the audience, from the Washington Post. Says China's Lonely Hearts reboot online romance with artificial intelligence. While human companions can be elusive or fickle, chatbots are always there to listen, and these will get shut down by the government because you can't have kids with an AI, and unless they use it for training people, perhaps, or something like that, to be better partners or something. But that's what this article about, is virtual companions, and that lonely Chinese people are having virtual companions. Fantastic technology. Our friend John Francois, very notably, has been working on this for over a decade, and has created such a virtual companion that many people use and have even proposed to. But China is trying to do everything it can to fix its declining birth rate, so I imagine these will get shut down. But interesting article nonetheless. Thank you to Anthony for that one. I just tweeted it out for those who want to read that Washington Post article. The next one, also about China, from Luke Cast from Express in the UK. Why America is increasingly concerned about China's growing nuclear arsenal. Gee, I can't figure out why we would even have any concern about that. The United States is growing increasingly concerned about China's growing nuclear arsenal, with China called on to end provocative behavior. And then the next one, also from Lucas, says the U.S. urges Americans in Afghanistan to leave immediately. A security alert urges Americans to leave on commercial flights as Taliban militants are attacking Afghan cities. And many Afghans are now rushing into Iran and Pakistan to avoid Taliban, including the last Jew in Afghanistan who even survived the previous Taliban takeover and has been there ever since. There's a documentary about him. He's in a synagogue. He lives in the synagogue, and he's the last Jew in Afghanistan. And he was refusing to leave, but now that the Taliban are back, he says, you know what? I'm out of here. So, British teams sent to Greece to help tackle wildfires. Home Security Priti Patel called for the deployment of British firefighters after a visit to Greece. And next one up is Apple VP acknowledges concerns about new scanning feature in internal memo. Apple unveiled the feature aimed at preventing child exploitation earlier this week. Boy, is this a huge story, and everyone's getting in on it. To be continued. Mahogany sends this one from South China Morning Post. Headline reads, Hong Kong education chief tight-lipped on the teachers' union's national security fate. Kevin Yuang only says on radio shows that law enforcement agencies will take appropriate actions if necessary. Hong Kong education chief is tight-lipped on whether city's largest teachers union has breached national security law. Well, if they have, they're all going to jail. But urged teachers to have a thorough rethink on their relationship with the 95,000 strong professional teachers union, the PTU. This sounds interesting. When you've got 95,000 teachers, that's a lot of power. You can't put them all in jail instantly. No evidence. Here's the headline from South China Morning Post. No evidence Hong Kong's largest teachers union breached national security law, says top advisor to leader, which implies that the leader thinks that they did, which means they're going to jail. That's 95,000 teachers in Hong Kong, which is all of them, all going to jail. Embattled Professional Teachers Union has taken a series of steps in the past week to stay out of controversy after coming under fire by state media for political actions. Oh boy, you can't do that. You can't take political actions in Hong Kong anymore. You don't have freedom of speech in Hong Kong anymore. And the teachers of Hong Kong are one of the largest unions. And this is a real problem because Beijing wants the students to be taught in a very Beijing way, and the teachers are Hong Kongers. You can, if you know anything about the region, I worked there myself, you can imagine where this is going to go. Executive Controller Ronnie Tong says nothing the union has said or done warrants prosecution, but Education Chief Ken Young urges teachers to rethink its ties to the union. Yeah, well, of course you are. You want to break up the union so that you don't have to arrest them all collectively. A top advisor to Hong Kong's leader said no evidence exists to support the prosecution of the heads of the city's largest teachers union for national security crimes, despite education authorities cutting ties with the group and warning law enforcers would take appropriate action if necessary. Executive Counselor Ronnie Tong Ka Wah emerged on Saturday as the first pro-establishment heavyweight to insist on the innocence of the 95,000-strong professional teachers union. That's going to get wild. Wow. Beijing found a formidable foe in Hong Kong after all. It's the teachers union educating the students, not in a way as Beijing would prefer. And that's a real problem they're going to have there. Wow. It's very easily predictable what's going to happen there. And it's very unfortunate. So, to be continued on that one, no doubt. The next headline reads, from a new generation of AI-powered robots is taking over warehouses. Within a few years, any task that previously required hands to perform could be partially or fully automated away. Yep, that's what I've said. And there's the headline. I just tweeted it out at the Tech News Twitter account. You can read it for yourself. NBC News reporting the headline, irreversible change to Atlantic currents could drastically change Earth's weather permanently. Well, at least in our lifetimes. The Atlantic Ocean's current system, an engine of Northern Hemisphere's climate, could be weakening to such an extent that it could soon bring big catastrophes and make many parts of the Northern Hemisphere uninhabitable. Good times. Bitcoin prices just reached their highest since May. What's next is the headline from Forbes. Bitcoin has gained recently, rising to its highest price since May 19th. What key levels of resistance would the cryptocurrency face next? Well, the answer to that is 60,000. Huawei sales tumble as phone buyers flee the Chinese giant. U.S. sanctions contributed to a nearly 30% fall overall revenue over the first half of the year. Scientists unveil extinct Ice Age lion cubs pulled from Russian permafrost. And there's a photo of these Ice Age lion cubs that were pulled out from Russian permafrost. You can see these. When was the Ice Age? Thousands of years ago. Scientists believe that the cave lion
10,000 years. Yeah.
Cave lion cubs, dubbed Boris and Sparta, each briefly roamed the steppe of what is now eastern Russia thousands of years ago. You can see the photo. They look like lion cub mummies, basically. And ex-Washington Post editor says that big tech does a lot of harm, but has advantages. And in all fairness, his boss is Jeff Bezos. The legendary journalist Marty Baron retired from his job as a Washington Post top editor in February after a 45-year career. And he can't be all negative about it. So the next one, also from the Washington Post, the headline reads, Twitch's most popular streamer is taking on the Olympics, for better or worse. Twitch streamers are worried that Felix, who's the largest streamer on Twitch, his spat with the International Olympic Committee could have disastrous consequences because he was live streaming the Olympics and talking over it. And this becomes a contentious legal battle over, was he contributing over the content enough to make it new content or not? Because if you're a YouTuber and you have copywritten music or images in your video in a very minor way, in the background, for example, you're filming a protest, a Black Lives Matter protest, and somebody's got a radio on in the background playing, 2 Live Crew or whatever, that was circumstantial. That's totally legal. That's just happened to be what was going on at the time. And if you have very minor, elements of copyrighted material in the backgrounds of things, generally you're free to go. But if you're playing the Olympics live stream and you're talking on top of it, how much on top of it are you talking? What is the primary content? The commentary on top or the content underneath? And in this case, the Olympics said, we are the primary content, so that's our content, and you need to shut down. And it did get shut down. And so that's why the other streamers are worried now that they're the most popular streamer got shut down. And it'll be a whole big brouhaha. But interesting article, and tweeting that to the Tech News Twitter account. The next one is about a new $350 million luxury train. That's an expensive train. And it's called the G Train. It promises to be a 1,300-foot locomotive with 18 guest rooms, a gym, a spa, and a room for movie screenings, among other luxurious features. And the question is, will you ride it? In America, probably.
It's a private train, so probably like for the Saudi royal family or Jeff Bezos or something.
And the next headline, Cheryl, this is about Singapore. Attention, Cheryl, we have a headline about Singapore.
Yes.
This one from the South China Morning Post. Singapore in momentous move for cryptocurrencies with digital payments licensing. And the development cements the city's status as Asia's leading crypto financial hub, experts say, as rivals such as Hong Kong have adopted stricter stances. There you go.
Regulation.
Yeah. Hong Kong. Yeah. And then the next one is about Japan. Boy, what a double win for Cheryl. Back to back. This one from Kyoto News that Cheryl herself sent in. The headline reads, Japan drug maker Shionogi to seek approval for an oral COVID drug. Japanese pharmaceutical firm plans to seek state approval for its oral coronavirus drug by the end of the year in the hope of offering a tablet for COVID.
That can be used at home.
There you go.
In fact, because right now they don't have enough capacity. So for those people who have COVID, they actually ask them to stay home instead of going to the hospital because they want to so-called reserve the beds for those people who are really seriously ill or have potential to be seriously ill.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So, next headlines, right? Here we go. The next one is smartphone under display biometrics, meaning your thumbprint, on the rise with Oppo and Google announcements. An under display fingerprint sensor would replace the near rear mounted biometric fingerprint scanner of previous Pixel models. And then this one from Evan, it's about fires. A company called Xsola fires 150 employees using big data and AI analysis. CEO's letter
That sucks.
causes controversy. Russian payment service company Xsola has fired 150 employees all at once. What caused controversy wasn't the staff reduction itself, but the CEO's letter explaining it was done by AI. And then next, we've got this one from the BBC. China cracks down on celebrity online culture. Indeed, we read the words directly from the CCP's mouthpiece saying they're going to change the algorithms of how people discover content, because those algorithms are TikTok and the Twitter of China, which are called Douyin and Weibo in China. And the government isn't happy about what kind of content people are consuming and what kind of content these algorithms are recommending they consume. They want them to consume Marxist literary criticism and not twerking videos or celebrity culture videos about celebrity dramas. That's their own words. I'm not making this up. That's actually their own words. So, yeah, they are going to crack down on celebrity online culture because it's not helping the country. It's dumbing you down. It's the smoking. They called it opiates of the masses, and they included video games as well in the same 24 hours later. They want to crack down on video games and celebrity culture and twerking and all of this nonsense that's opiates for the masses and diabetes of the mind. And it's dumbing down their culture, and they don't like it one bit. And they want you to read Karl Marx. Their own words. I shit you not, as we say in Southern California. So, yeah. State-owned newspaper People's Daily criticized platforms that make stars out of unworthy individuals, it says. Boy, would they have a field day with the Kardashians here. It did not specify any companies, but the article comes during a wider crackdown on online firms in China. Weibo said its decision was due to what it describes as irrational support some fans were showing for celebrities. Indeed, it's irrational. Earlier this week, Economic Information Daily, also run by the state, hit out at games firms, saying that many teenagers had become addicted to online gaming. Shares in Tencent and NetEase, two biggest gaming companies, fell by more than 10% in the wake of the criticism. And because they know if the state's propaganda newspapers are saying this, that it's very likely the state's going to regulate it out of existence. And indeed they are. They've limited it to, well, the gaming company Tencent preemptively self-imposed that gamers can only game for 1 hour per day, and that cannot be after 10 p.m. when you can't game at all. And Weibo lists, man, it's just wild what's going on over there. They're cracking down on shit content. And I imagine there's many Americans who would welcome that in the U.S. as well. So the next headline is, by the way, the stock prices of cigarettes and alcohol started sinking because local Chinese believe that that's what's going to get cracked down on next. Unpacking the rise behind buy now, pay later schemes.
I know why. Is it because alcohol and tobacco will cause lower birth rate?
Yeah, Cheryl, I think you might be onto something there. Unpacking the rise behind buy now, pay later. By 2024, it's estimated that buy now, pay later arrangements will account for 4.2% of global e-commerce payments. And that's all you need to know. That we just unpacked the rise of buy now, pay later. Now you know. And it was in an article earlier that teens are buying more. There's nothing to unpack. It's just it sells more shit. Simple as that. What if highways were electric? As the headline from the New York Times. Germany is testing the idea. An electrified highway is theoretically the most efficient way to eliminate truck emissions, but the political obstacles are daunting. An electrified highway, yeah. So there you go. Fun article, New York Times. electrified highways. They likely will be a thing. They're being tested in some parts of the U.S. and Sweden and now Germany. Fingers
It's
crossed
much
that
easier
it
just
works out.
electrify the trucks.
Yeah.
Tyler,
Yes.
Just add batteries.
do you know about Don? I think his last name is Rosengarten. There's a Dutch designer that made this road in Eindhoven that was luminescent, and he made it with all like natural materials. It's actually a piece of artwork, but I think they've written about it. It's really interesting to see how certain people are repurposing to be able to sort of be more aware of the environment and sustainable. And I'm not sure, it's been around for a while, but someone was just mentioning it to me today. But it's also why that would be really interesting to do, because they're trying to do that for the bike paths as well, so that they could save on electricity.
Oh.
So they could save. So the bike paths would actually be lit by like some sort of solar format. But anyways, I'll ping it over to you. But it's a really nice project that was done in Eindhoven, and it's combining tech with sustainability.
Okay. So here we go. Moving on. From Evan, amending soils with volcanic dust would sequester greenhouse gas without changing land use. That's the headline. Sprinkling basalt over soil could remove huge amounts of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Check into it. The next one from Dr. Fran from Entrepreneur reads, here's why not being on TikTok is a huge mistake. If you think TikTok is just for Gen Z, think again. Here's how to use the platform to your business advantage. Sponsored by TikTok. It doesn't say that, but you better believe it is, as Entrepreneur is one of those shitty magazines that takes money from anybody to print shit. So the next one is from Lucas via Reuters, who doesn't take money from anybody to print shit. And the headline says, analysis, retail coffee prices to climb as frost and freight costs bite. The most devastating frost in decades in top coffee producer Brazil, and record freight costs sparked by COVID-19 causing massive shipping logjams are raising the price of coffee. Coming to a cafe near you soon. Evan just sent in this one, a tweet by someone named Ian Weissman. And he says, Lyme disease protection, no vaccine yet, but an antibody shot could soon provide a season of immunity for Lyme disease. Good times. And Evan sent in this incredibly wild-looking supercar designer is building a 250 mile per hour flying hypercar. This is the most futuristic thing I've ever seen. You have to see it to understand it. It looks like a goddamn futuristic UFO flying car. It's crazy. The next one, also from Evan, about Venezuela to launch a CBDC, central bank digital currency, in October. The Central Bank of Venezuela is rolling out a CBDC in October and will launch an SMS-based exchange system. And then Dr. Fran brings us this headline that work continues on Wuhan Apple Store for September opening. Apple will soon start work on a new Apple Store location in China, with the first outlet in Wuhan to be set in the Wuhan International Plaza. And then Evan brings us this one that Czech scientists develop drones with brains to make a crowd surveillance far easier. Police drones that are currently used above areas of interest do not have any training data. No one is able to assess what is normal behavior or not, and soon they will.
I kind of imagine this is going to come to every police department everywhere. I mean, this is too useful for them.
Yep. Crowds, drones with brains. You'll have drone swarms managing crowds with cameras and audio systems and telling them, hey, idiot, don't light that trash can on fire. Your face is now recognized. Jim Smith, 39 years old. Please escort yourself to the police station immediately. Dear citizen, attention citizen.
Well, they did that with COVID, right? They had speakers attached to the drones to get them to social distance.
Yeah. So, Dr. Fran just sent in a satellite video of the fires, the wildfires continuing to burn across Western North America, these huge California fires, the Dixie Fire. and you can now watch a satellite photo of the fire. It's wild. Thank you for that. And then we've got this one from who's next? Poppy with this one. Headline reads, Big Tech's Big Problem. Let employees stay home from expensive campuses or risk losing 30% of their workers. And the answer is let them work from home and then start hiring their replacements all over the planet at a quarter of the cost. It's quite simple. That's what's going to happen. Mark my words. The next one is from Faraz via Zaya.com. Buy now, pay later. FinTech leads 2021 Saudi venture capital financing, which makes perfect sense as they're earlier in their development. There, a lot of FinTech is still booming there. And buy now, pay later in the Middle East makes all the sense in the world, which is why I reached out to Faraz to just confirm that indeed there were buy now, pay laters in the Middle East, because if there wasn't, that would be a great place to do them. And then the next one from Lakeisha about want to pretend to live on Mars for a whole year. Apply now to join the NASA program that we talked about earlier, where they want to test people living together as if they're living on Mars before they actually get there. And then Cheryl sent in this one from Wired that algorithms look at x-rays and somehow detect race from x-rays, but doctors can't tell how they're doing it. A study raises new concerns that AI will exacerbate disparities in healthcare. One issue, the study's authors aren't sure what cues are used by the AI algorithms. And then the next one is from Evan about NASA. NASA to explore luxury asteroid headed for our solar system worth
Cha-ching.
10,000 quadrillion dollars.
I only need 1% of that.
And then this
I
one.
wonder why no one's trying. Well, there was talks of trying to mine it. I don't know. It didn't pan out. I don't know.
No, it hasn't come into proximity to start mining it. So the next one is also from Evan. And the headline reads, Nigeria's Twitter ban is proving costlier than just a regular internet shutdown.
That's a really good one. And I recall you predicted this, Tyler, like 2 months ago. So
as day 61, the Twitter ban had cost Nigeria $366.9 million. Only Myanmar and India have had worse losses. Nigeria's ban has affected 104.4 million internet users, and it says it has become a multi-million-dollar economic headache for the country, impacting businesses of all sizes, from banks to startups who use social media for activities like customer service and dispute resolution. The ban also hit entrepreneurs and vendors who are able to gain visibility through social media campaigns and viral tweets, and the content creators and marketers who have built a career out of running those campaigns. British firm Top 10 VPN estimates that the ban has affected around 104 million internet users in the country, and the cost the country around $366.9 million. The firm made the calculations using a tool developed by internet governance watchdog organizations NetBlocks and Internet Society, a U.S. advocacy nonprofit. The tool is based on similar methodologies used by organizations such as the Brookings Institute, a U.S. research institution. So far, only Myanmar and India have had worse financial losses than Nigeria from an internet shutdown of some form. Top 10 VPN estimates Uganda, which disrupted internet access in January for a controversial presidential election, is in fourth place, with its shutdown costing around $51 million, and Myanmar in first place with $2.5 billion in losses due to 5,400 shutdown hours affecting 22 million people, followed by India, then Nigeria, then Uganda, then Syria, Iran, Cuba, Armenia, and then Colombia.
You will have a really, really strong "I told you so" moment when we really get this with the smaller these mom and pop shops that actually are dependent on this. This is the effects of the old economy before the mom and pop shops pop onto this one. Imagine what would happen in 1 year when mom and pops are there as well. You undone.
Yeah, as social media becomes e-commerceified and everybody's stores goes on to these former social media platforms to sell everything directly with all the buy buttons directly in these social media apps, inevitably causing many retailers to shut down their physical retail locations and be exclusively e-commerceified, which will happen guaranteed, then at some point you're going to have some significant percentage of your businesses on these social media platforms exclusively. And then if you shut down Twitter and they've got, I don't know, 10, 15, 20% of your businesses are on that platform, now 20% of your economy just got shut down. So it could be a problem in the future. So the next headline is that Gen Z and millennial employees embrace the concept of polywork, which is interesting to see Polywork already doing some PR for a startup that doesn't even have its beta testers on board yet. So it's the new mobile-first version of LinkedIn for people and Gen Zs and millennials who don't have traditional work habits, like gig economy and whatnot. Just raised a whole bunch of money from a whole bunch of smart people. And then, Evan, you have this one from Fast Company. The smart home is flailing as a concept because it sucks.
Well, it sucks that it's not interoperable. I mean, you can't
Right.
figure out how to get everything to work together.
True.
It's a nightmare.
By the way, all of the hardware manufacturers all finally united under a unified cooperative system. Somebody remember the name of it? Starts with an M. Is it Movement? Something like that. Jeremiah is likely to know. It's a consortium. They're all uniting under kind of like USB devices all work together now. And now all smart home devices are all going to be interoperable with Alexa and Siri and Google Assistant.
I'll believe it when I see it.
Yeah. They already have a logo for it and everything. All the smart lights, all your smart speakers, everything will all be magically interoperable. So now to address this specific issue, which is a real issue today, but likely will get fixed very soon because they all have to do it. So the next one's from the New York Times. No work, no food. Pandemic deepens global hunger. Relentless waves of the virus combined with crisis caused by conflict and climate change have left tens of millions of people around the world on the brink of starvation. Yeah, tens of millions. About 40 million people starving. New York Times just tweeted it. And Brian Brooks resigns as the CEO of crypto exchange Binance, which may or may not have something to do with this new infrastructure bill that just passed about 30 minutes ago. We will find out in the continuing drama of Binance and the infrastructure bill and what exactly which amendment was included in the bill. We will know very soon. The Bloomberg writing another story about Blizzard turned game developers into rock stars. Misbehavior followed. Managers set the tone by hiring mostly men, stoking their egos and dating women in the company, current and former employees have said. And by Jason Schreier. And it tells the story of just how bad things were at Blizzard and why they're being sued for sexual harassment and discrimination. And then we've got
Tyler.
Yes, Jeremiah.
Hey, the home interop standard that you were referencing is called Matter.
Matter, that's it.
Doesn't matter.
There it is.
And the thing I've learned about being as a tech analyst when it comes to industry standards is there's always so many to choose from.
Well, let's hope it just addresses that headline that we read, which is, people are correctly pointing out that we've got way more gadgets than standards, and it's becoming a bit of a problem for everybody. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Tyler.
Go ahead.
Some of these markets I've been calling the ever-emergent market of fill in the blank. Mm-hmm. And this smart home stuff, right when we were doing the Java consumer tech in the mid to late 90s, Sun was advocating something called Genie. And all of this smart home stuff, it's been around for decades, and it's still looking for a driving, the killer app. I guess is one way to put it. Mm-hmm. So it's just ever emerging market is just kind of the way I look at some of these things.
Yep. So
thanks.
Yeah, Evan just sent in this one. Predicting wireless traffic using AI may improve the reliability of future wireless communications, and just sent that one out. And now we've got this one about the United States Air Force makes history with highway landings in Michigan. And there's a huge A-10 Michigan National Guard aircraft takes off during testing on M32 near Alpena, Michigan, with screenshots of this military fighter jet taking off down an American highway.
Can I add to that, Tyler? Did you know that the German Autobahn, which is the premier freeway in the world, was first spurred during World War II because they made it with high-grade materials to transport military from one side of the country to the other, versus American cheap asphalt falls apart. So these are all tied.
I just learned today that America during World War II, it started out as neutral because it was kind of in Europe and it didn't directly affect us immediately. And Winston Churchill was begging for America to get involved because he was worried about the UK versus Germany, understandably. And we resisted. And then Germany sent somebody to Iceland because the Nazis loved the idea of this purely white country. And they were trying to convince them to kind of join the Nazi perspective and kind of be an ally, which didn't go so well. And they had one person dedicated to the project. And then, because Germany also liked the idea of controlling Iceland geographically in that part of the world as a base. And then, because of apparently Winston Churchill got word of that German guy over there, he sent over 10,000 troops to Iceland, which doesn't itself have any military, and politely asked to come aboard or get on land, and they allowed that. And then the first place they went was to the home of that German kind of Nazi official, and said he needed to come out. And then he said, but this is a neutral country, you shouldn't be here. And he said, but that didn't stop you from going into Norway. And so he came out, and then Winston needed to focus those 10,000 troops elsewhere on the war, and then convinced America to come babysit Iceland so that the Nazis couldn't take it. America agreed. So they came and built a whole bunch of roads around Iceland, which are still there today, and they were made to military strength, as to your point. So those roads are still in great condition today because they're built to military specs to handle incredibly heavy weights and everything.
Cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. Real quick to build off that, I've been to Iceland a number of times. Wherever U.S. military bases land, that's where you see Taco Bell, KFC, and now that's become part of the diet instead of puffins and fish.
This with road air bases, Sweden did during the 60s, 70s, and 80s have the world's third largest air force. That's something that most people don't know. Since we have had this Soviet Union, USSR, quite close to us, we actually had the third largest. So we have a lot of road bases in Sweden. You can't go along any of our European motorways without seeing, this strait looks very, very familiar, like a airstrip, and what are these kind of strange houses that looks you could put a plane into it? It might be an indication that you're actually running on a road base. And these road bases, we actually had 110 of them, all on maps for the Air Force. So we had, and they are still there, they have not been dismounted. So the road bases in Sweden, we have 110 airstrips all over the country for our fighter jets. Johan done.
Okay, thank you, Johan. So
we're doing the one-up thing, but you also need to look in the Swiss Alps. There's hidden air bases in the mountain ready to shoot up planes. I'm not joking.
Yeah, Switzerland's no joke on its defense. Yeah, because they were surrounded by Germany and everything, so, and Italy on both sides. So it's like they took great extremes. They actually had every single road entering Switzerland had a bridge that was blow upable with explosive placed there, and they could immediately blow up all of the roads entering Switzerland, which would stop essentially tanks from coming in and whatnot.
And they had tunnels for or bunkers for every citizen during the Cold War, underground bunkers.
Every man has a gun as well and is trained how to use a gun. So
I just saw a video yesterday how they have bunkers that look like very nice houses.
Yeah,
painted, and you just drive by them and think it was a nice little
And rocks.
home, and it really has cannons inside of it,
Yep.
ready to
The
blow up
rocks have
tanks.
tanks inside.
Yep. So next headline is protests against COVID-19 health pass held across France again for the fourth consecutive week. This is now becoming a weekend tradition. Thousands of people are expected to march in Paris and other French cities during the fourth consecutive week of protests against COVID-19 health pass. And looking at the photo, no one's wearing masks in these protests in Paris during Delta. Fantastic. Marches are expected in about 150 cities. That's a lot. Some 200,000 plus people, 204,000 people protested last weekend, and authorities believe similar numbers should be observed this Saturday. The demonstrations come just 2 days before the use of the health pass, attesting that the holder has either been fully vaccinated, has recently tested negative, or has recovered from the disease, is extended to bars, restaurants, and long-distance public transport. The health pass is already required to visit cultural and leisure venues with capacity of more than 50 people. France's Constitutional Council approved the extension on Thursday. Over the previous 3 weeks, protesters chanted "No to the health pass" and "freedom." They argue that the pass restricts their freedom and that the government is forcing people to get vaccinated. Some demonstrators are also protesting the government making COVID-19 vaccines mandatory for healthcare workers by September 15th. More than 79% of French adults have received at least one dose of the vaccine, and 68% are fully inoculated. At least 7 million people have gotten their first vaccine shot since President Macron announced the rollout of the health pass on July 12th. France is registering over 21,000 new confirmed virus cases daily, a steep climb from 1 month ago. More than 112,000 people with the virus have died in the country since the start of the pandemic. A growing number of European countries have started implementing virus pass protections or requirements, each with slightly different rules. Protests have been held last month in neighboring Italy against a pass to access indoor dining, gyms, theaters, cinemas, and other gathering places. The so-called Green Pass entered into force on Friday. Good times. So, other fantastic tweets happening at this very moment is new semiconductor cools computer chips. High thermal conductivity boron arsenide is better at removing heat than the best thermal management devices available today. Thank you, Evan. And then Dr. Fran sent in this one about the kindergarten exodus. As the pandemic took hold, more than 1 million children did not enroll in local schools. Many of them were the most vulnerable 5-year-old kindergartners. These kindergartners lost 20% or more of their students during the pandemic. And you can see a map of where people took their kids out of kindergarten on the U.S. Thank you, Dr. Fran. And then Evan has this one from the Washington Post. The headline reads, "While they were asleep, their Teslas burned in the garage." And the fire inspector cited thermal management system is one of the Tesla sedans as possible cause of the blaze, which showed that what can happen when one electric car ignites another in a garage. And then Loyola University student wins battle over COVID vaccine. 11 students at Loyola University in Chicago won a victory over COVID-19 vaccine mandate that is sweeping the county in education. And this from Dr. Danish. Danish, are you on stage? Or John, do you know about this story?
I am.
Yeah, can you
Yeah, I do.
fill us in?
This is an interesting one. So Loyola students claimed that because there was aborted fetal tissue involved in the development of this vaccine, therefore it violated their religious rights. And so Loyola pushed back and said, hey, that's not completely accurate, nor is it a true religious exemption. But they lost, and it was upheld.
Okay.
So I feel like we're going to see a lot of evangelists doing this across the country.
Okay. Thank you for that. Okay, moving on. We've got this one from Evan. Norway, plug-in car sales maintain 85% share in July 2021. 85% of cars are EVs. Wow. And there's a photo of the new Hyundai Ioniq 5. It was the third most registered new car in July. And that's what you call a real budget car in Norway, where the average car is a Tesla Model S. And then you've got investors are ignoring a dangerous crackdown on press freedom, according to Bloomberg. Younger, more socially conscious investors may change that. I want to know what they're talking about, but I bet you it's paywalled by Bloomberg. Investors are ignoring dangerous crackdown on press freedoms. From Hong Kong to the U.S., freedom of expression is under threat. Global press freedom is under spectacular pressure. More journalists than ever are in jail last year, and the number of media workers killed rose by a third compared to 2019, with Asia accounting for nearly half of those murdered. With the crackdown on the world's press comes a more challenging business landscape for investors. Restricted information flows can mask political and regulatory problems, as well as potential fraud and corruption, raising risks of doing business, particularly in more volatile emerging markets where good quality information may be scarce. Interesting point. And the photos from Myanmar, perhaps not coincidentally, where indeed all the press were kicked out so that the military could do what they do in the cover of darkness, as they did in Sri Lanka. So,
Another quick question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Are we having a tweet fight tonight?
No.
All right.
Yeah. Investors are ignoring dangerous crackdown on press freedom. I don't think investors are ignoring the crackdown on press freedom. I just think they're ambivalent. Yeah, you could say ignoring if you want to clickbait it, as you would do. But next one is from Evan. Wearable devices could use your breathing patterns like a password. Subtle patterns in the way we breathe can be used to generate a secure password to keep paired smartwatches and smartphones safe from hackers. Love it. Next, some in U.S. are getting COVID-19 boosters without FDA approval. When the Delta variant started spreading, Gina Welch decided not to take any chances. She got a third booster. Dr. Donish, what's going on?
It's happening everywhere. It was happening in Canada before. Like we've been saying here, we're going to see this happen. I think if you have gotten a J&J vaccine, I'm not recommending it, but I won't blame you if you want to go out there and get a booster. I think the FDA and CDC are behind the times, and if you guys may remember, a couple of days ago there was a hospital out in SF that was in San Francisco that was actually giving all of their J&J vaccinated individuals booster vaccines, and I've been calling for it, but there's not enough data yet. So I think it's going to be we're going to wait on the data, even though AstraZeneca had very clear data in Germany. I just think that on the biotech side, and FDA and CDC are too slow to act, and in this regard, I think we should be giving boosters, and it's happening already, whether people want it or not. The other thing is we don't have vaccine passports, or one positive I guess about not having vaccine passports is people can kind of go back in and say, hey, I don't have any vaccines in, and they get the booster. So I'm not recommending it for anybody. I don't think that would be the right thing to do here, but it's happening, and it's happening all over the country. I think even this is way underreporting it.
So what I guess.
So just asking for a friend, if I want to get a booster, do I get the first shot again or the second shot? Asking for a friend.
So if you were going to do this, the whole value add here would be to get the full cycle again. So I would go back and get the first and if you've had J&J, then I would get both. If you've
Oh, I've
had
had
Pfizer,
Moderna. I've had Moderna, but my friend
then
also
you
said
would only
Moderna. Yeah.
get the first shot. But again, I am not recommending this. This is not medical advice. I'm just saying that that's what people are doing.
But Dr. Danesh, whoever got vaccinated, their name should be already in the database, right? So those people who are administrating the vaccine, they can check, right? Because if not,
No,
there will be
this is
some
not
crazy people who go and overdose
Cheryl,
themselves.
you're thinking like somebody from Singapore or Tokyo.
exactly. So the
Database,
only way,
LOL.
Come on.
yeah, I was like, I can't get my dad's records from like the same hospital across different locations. This is America,
Every
America,
state has its own. Yeah.
Oh
and I was
God.
gonna say that ultimately the only way that they find out is, and this is kind of messed up to the pharmacists, because the pharmacists then bill for it and they're like, oh, they've already gotten their shots, and then they're like, God damn it, we just gave that out and paid for it, but then never got paid for it. And so that's the only way, Cheryl, unfortunately, in the U.S.
Mm.
For and the other side of it is also, again, we know that in other countries they're already doing the booster shots for J&J, and I'm not completely convinced that a third booster shot is completely needed for people that are not immunocompromised. If you have any sort of immunocompromise, I can't give medical advice on this, and I'm just giving what the data is showing out of other countries. But if you are immunocompromised, I really strongly think that the government, FDA, CDC, should have already recommended booster shots for the immunocompromised and people that are high risk. They're doing it in every other country right now. Every other, I would say, developed nation, especially in Europe, Germany being the most prominent of them. So this is just, it's happening anyway. I think people are starting to make their own decisions. It's so fascinating to see like all of these people that are anti-vax and all of these people that are pro booster. It's just we're back at the fringes again.
So there's a
Dr. Danish, I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
Dr. Danish, Dr. Fran's New York Times retweet or tweet on the tweet was really great with regards to the kindergarten exodus, but it was from last year. So I think that's kind of an untimely headline. Can you speak with regards to just the current information on risk to unvaccinated children?
So this is the thing that people aren't talking about. And again, we know that children are starting to get more infections. And so it's not that children are uniquely at risk for Delta variant. It's just everybody is at higher risk to get Delta variant. And now kids, their risk has gone up just as much as the adult has. The percentage of children and again, this is just based on the data, and not the narrative. So the narrative right now is, oh my God, kids are so much higher at risk now, and it's like, well, let's parse that out. Number one, kids are at higher risk, just like adults are at higher risk with Delta. So it's not just a uniquely like Delta is attacking kids on purpose. The other part of this is that the percentage numbers is also not a great way to look at it because the denominator has changed. A lot of adults have vaccines. The kids are the ones that are left unvaccinated. So with 90 something percent of new Delta cases happening in the unvaccinated, of course, kids are going to be a bigger percentage of that because a lot of adults, 50% of adults are already vaccinated, right? And so I think we have to, I'm not saying that we shouldn't be fearful, especially given that 10 to 13%, depending on the most recent data of kids that get COVID have long COVID for the rest of their lives potentially, right? At least more than 6 weeks, if not longer than that. And once you have these issues, these can stay, and it could affect a child's entire life. And what an awful thing to do. And so it is a huge problem. But I do also want when I talk to parents and stuff, I always say like right now we don't have an FDA approved vaccine for children, and if you can afford to, and again, this is a personal opinion now, this is not a medical opinion, but I would keep them out of school right now because of the Delta variant and the fact that it is affecting kids more than the wild type variant.
Okay, there's a
Are
related
you
headline.
recommending or not or suggesting even the ones that are vaccinated, like our high school students?
Oh no, I was
And
talking
not
about the
asking for your
unvaccinated kids.
professional opinion. Okay, just the
No.
unvaccinated. Okay.
Yeah, I was specifically talking about kids younger than 12.
Okay, cool.
So there's a related headline from AP at the moment. Unvaccinated hospitalized patient now advocates for shots. Cedric Daniels and Joshua Bradstreet Contreras didn't think they really needed the coronavirus vaccine. After all, the uncle and nephew are both young, 37 and 22 respectively, and Contreras was as healthy as a horse, Daniel says. But just days after Daniels went to visit Contreras in New Orleans, a long-awaited reunion that came after not seeing each other for months because of the pandemic, the nephew was rushed away in an ambulance. He couldn't breathe, even when sitting completely still. He is now in a hospital in New Orleans suburb on a ventilator and in a medically induced coma. At about the same time, Daniel started feeling weak, had blurred vision, and was so short of breath he could barely make it from his couch in the living room to the bathroom. He tested positive for the virus and went to the hospital in Baton Rouge, already overwhelmed with Corona-19 patients, where he stayed for a week on oxygen as he recovered from pneumonia. Contreras and Daniels are among a flood of patients filling up overloaded hospitals across the U.S. amid a surge of COVID-19 cases driven by the virus's highly contagious Delta variant. Health officials say the most serious cases have been among the unvaccinated. It is frustrating because it's preventable, but more than that, it's really sad, said James Ford, a critical care doctor at the ICU at Our Lady of Lake Medical Center in Baton Rouge, where Daniels was treated. To help with the influx, the hospital brought in a disaster medical assistance team, over 3 dozen healthcare workers on Monday. That same day, hospital leaders at a news conference where Governor John Bel Edwards announced a reinstated statewide mask mandate described grim conditions across Louisiana, facilities filled with COVID-19 patients, including children in hospitals, hallways lined with stretchers because there wasn't enough beds. A lot of them are debilitated and need round-the-clock care, said Ford, who had been working on his days off to help ease hospitals' burden. It's very labor-intensive. Some of the patients, like Daniels, now wish they had taken the shot. Here's the quote. They're talking about putting tubes down your throat, possibly if your oxygen doesn't go up within the next hour, and that is frightening, he told the Associated Press on Monday as he lay in a bed with an oxygen tube up his nose. He was released shortly after, but still must use oxygen at home. I am now a huge advocate for doctors' orders, Daniels added. They think we ought to get vaccinated. I think we ought to get vaccinated. Daniels, who lives in Gonzales, about 57 miles northwest of New Orleans, said he and Contreras were the only unvaccinated members of their households. Daniels' wife and live-in mother-in-law, both of whom were inoculated months ago, have both tested negative twice since he tested positive. Contreras' mother, Tasha Bradstreet, had also been vaccinated, as her 19-year-old son, who lives in the same house in New Orleans. Bradstreet said she tried to persuade Contreras to get the shot, but he said he only but said she had only so much pull over him. Josh hardly goes anywhere since COVID hit, so he didn't think he needed the vaccine. One of the places to which Contreras did go, however, was his summer job at Cafe Reconcile. At the time he started getting ill, he got a call from the restaurant telling him that a coworker had tested positive for the virus and he needed to get himself tested. He had a headache and some nausea, so at first we thought it was dehydration. After a week later, he couldn't smell. He couldn't breathe. I noticed his breath was quick and rapid, and he could barely stand up and do anything, and I called an ambulance. And your son needs a ventilator and almost died. I couldn't believe it. I didn't realize how serious it was. I didn't know he almost died. Bradstreet told it, yada, yada. You get the point. Go get vaccinated. Long story short. So,
Guys, long story short is this is the Super Bowl. This is the Super Bowl. You know, we had the early games to figure out who's going. This is the Super Bowl, everybody. It's really sad, but this is it.
So the 7-day average for new daily COVID infections has surpassed 100,000 in the U.S. We're now averaging 100,000 new cases per day, generally in the South, generally in places that didn't get vaccinated, just like the story you just heard in Louisiana, and returning to levels not seen since the winter surge. Health officials fear that hospitalizations and deaths will continue to soar if more don't get the vaccine. And the next one
This is 0-16 Lions versus the 17-0 Patriots Super Bowl.
59% of nursing house staff are vaccinated. Only 59%, according to AP News. Nationally, about 59% of nursing home staff have gotten their shots. About the same as overall percentage of fully vaccinated adults, but significantly lower than roughly 80% of residents who are vaccinated. So that's concerning. And then we've got Dr. Danish has an article from AP News that says unvaccinated staff eyed in rising nursing home cases and deaths. Lagging vaccination rates among nursing home staff are being linked to national increase in COVID-19 infections and deaths.
I just wanted to add, Tyler, can I just have 30 seconds
Yeah.
maybe? So yesterday, I'm fully vaccinated, but I have a 6-year-old daughter. And I'm going to go get a test today because some guy without a mask decided to come up to me as I was ordering fast food and my window was open. And I had right away to pull into the friggin' the fast food line. And anyways, there was like this little like whatever. And this guy just came up and just like, hey, blah, 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 and like was whatever. And so I'm going to go get a test, but please wear a mask. I mean, when CDC relax the masking requirements because of blah, 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 what it did is it created a situation where we have no clue, really like no confidence on whether anybody has been vaccinated now since they said that everybody can take off their mask. They've turned on that, but I don't know how many people are going to start wearing masks. But yeah, talk about anxiety. I just a request. Just put a mask on. Thank you. Sorry, Tyler.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing, Tyler, I was going to say about the 59% nursing home. Sorry, I was having trouble with my signal. I was just going to say that what's really worrisome about that is if you do have a family member in a nursing home right now, I'm sure you're shaking a little because with nursing home residents, they tend to be significantly immunocompromised. The government has not gotten boosters out to those people. So now their immunity, they were one of the first to get vaccinated, right? So their immunity is waning now. And then on top of that, essentially 1 out of 2 of the nursing home people that are staff that's taking care of them could be, could be, has the potential to be a carrier for a disease that will for sure get them into the hospital. And so they have low immunity. The staff are not mandated to have vaccines. I don't know how this is possible in a civilized nation where the people that are taking care of the most vulnerable don't have a mandate to get a vaccine. It's unreal. I can tell you right now that this is just setting up, just like New York in the beginning with all the nursing homes. This is setting us up for disaster. I just don't. I was very much in shock with those numbers.
Okay.
And this is the things here. Would have anticipated that people would have learned from Sweden's mistake during the first wave, then the second wave, and the third wave, that we need to do something. And Sweden still doesn't do anything, and now more countries follow. I'm flabbergasted.
So the next headline is that Google founder Larry Page gets New Zealand residency, raising questions. And I can explain a little bit. He was living in Fiji with his daughter. She needed medical attention, apparently, and so was able to land his private plane in New Zealand for medical attention. And the New Zealanders are very upset because many of their loved ones are not able. No one's enter New Zealand, including family members, children, and loved ones living afar are not able to come in. But somehow Larry Page was able to land his private plane, and then it was reported that it was because his daughter needed medical attention. They were in Fiji. That's what they're telling the public, and the people are saying it doesn't matter. He's not a resident, and now magically it's now being reported. Google founder gets New Zealand residency, raising questions. That's the headline.
It was his son, by the way.
Sorry.
Maybe he bought the hospital.
No,
Well,
it's
so
because he
the way
got
it
the
works
visa
is you have to
under.
be
Right.
an investor plus. That's
Exactly.
the actual term.
Yep.
I've done work for New Zealand and New Zealand Airlines. I do not have this ability, but investor plus means you are going to or have committed 10 million Australian buckos in investment. As you
New Zealand.
know, if Larry, New Zealand, I forget the currency. For Larry Page, I think he just looked between the couches on his Gulfstream.
Yeah. that's just, you don't need a lot. So the next one is, speaking of New Zealand, emissions from cows on New Zealand's dairy farms reach record levels. Calls for further regulation after latest data. Holy cow, The Guardian, you have a whopping typo here. Calls for further regulation after latest data from Stats New Zealand shows greenhouse gas emissions rose another 3%. So that's from Dr. Fran from The Guardian with a wild typo in the headline. And then the next one is from John Gruber, who does a blog called Daring Fireball, where he says Apple's new child safety initiatives and the slippery slope. And more specifically, it says it's now an incredibly popular tweeted article at the moment. It says an overview of Apple's 3 new child safety initiatives, what critics are getting wrong, and the completely legitimate slippery slope concerns from experts, which is the slippery slope he's referring to is now that you allow one little exception, one asterisk on your privacy policy, that you're searching, it's privacy, all caps, bold, italicized, underlined, skywritten. Privacy is Apple's big, unique differentiator. However, it's privacy, except we're now, checking all the photos on your devices in iCloud. against this, database of images. And as good intended as it is, many security experts are saying you're opening a Pandora's box that the governments are going to run amok with. If you give them that inch, the next thing you know, they're going to be testing all kinds of stuff. And he's joining Edward Snowden and other cybersecurity experts and the EEF in trying to get Apple to reconsider, essentially. So that's what the blog post is all about. And then a separate headline altogether, shared by Evan, but totally related, is that the head of Facebook's own WhatsApp slammed Apple's plan to scan iPhotos for child abuse images as a setback for people's privacy all over the world, he says. So rather strong words from Apple's very strong competitor of Facebook's owned WhatsApp. The head of WhatsApp says they're not going to do that. And then this one from Evan about someone named Corina Kopf. And this influencer says she's made $4.2 million a month on OnlyFans. And she says, my first titty pic ever made $165,000. And for the record, I would happily expose my breasts on OnlyFans for $160,000. For anyone who's interested, you can DM me if you want to see. But you could just come to the beach and see it for free.
I don't think anyone's interested, though.
You could come to the beach and see it for free. I'm not even going to charge you if you want a freebie.
Free the nipples, is what we're saying.
Free nipples, yeah. So the next one is from Evan that the crypto scam bilked investors out of $100 million and paid action star Steven Seagal to promote it. And that could have been an indicator that there may have been a scam involved. That could have been your first clue. So it was a crypto scam straight out of a Steven Seagal movie featuring the action film star himself as a private eye, a staged kidnapping, and millions of dollars that vanished into thin air. Prosecutors say the fraud left nearly 500 investors out of more than 11 million in cash and a mix of established cryptocurrencies that they had plunked into a purported crypto mining operation with the promise of up to 200% gains within 60 to 90 days. But instead of reaping huge rewards, the money was funneled into accounts overseas controlled by Christian Kristic, an accused Serbian-Australian huckster living in the Philippines with a history of fraud allegations. Federal prosecutors and investigators with Securities Exchange Commission say, Christian, you do realize that the Philippines have an extradition treaty with America, do you not, Christian? You should have thought that one through. You should have considered Moldova, which may or may not have a Subway sandwich location coming soon. And you could have avoided the extradition treaty that you're now going to be suffering and spending a long time in jail in America in the near future. But last week, John DeMar, a 55-year-old California private investigator who had served as the frontman for the scam, pleaded guilty to helping run the fraud while pocketing nearly $2 million, which he used to buy a Porsche and a BMW, pay off over $1 million in debts, and financial lavish renovation of his Seal Beach home. He faces up to 5 years in prison when he's sentenced on January 4th. And they're coming for you, Christian Kristic, and you might want to run to Moldova. That's right, Moldova, the sponsor.
Let's put that in perspective. 5 years.
Yeah.
There's people stealing. There's people going away for like a lot longer for a lot less, right? It's just.
Tyler, I think Moldova government has to pay you for promoting for them.
Moldova, reach out to us. We are willing to work with you directly. And Subway and Moldova, we can do great things together. Just reach us out here at Tech News Around the World. But that does it. We're at the top of the hour. 4 hours of Tech News Around the World, and we will bid you a very happy, healthy weekend, and we'll see you again on Monday, everyone.
Monday.
Yeah. Thank you.
Monday,
Hey,
Singapore
Tyler,
National Holiday.
Monday.
Yeah, hey, Tyler.
Yes.
Are you going to do any deep dives on